Abraham's story in a nutshell. Born around 2170 BCE in the prominent city of Ur, Abram, later named Abraham, was a central figure in biblical history. Moving to Haran after the death of his brother Haran, he married his half-sister Sarai at 75, and he heeded a divine call to relocate to Canaan. Accompanied by Sarai and his nephew Lot, his story opens up with the immediate promise of a land that God will show him, and that he will be a great nation. Facing famine, they took refuge in Egypt, where, fearing for their lives, Abraham presented Sarai as his sister, afraid the Egyptians would kill him for her beauty. Mind you, Sarai is 10 years younger than Abraham, according to these texts. So here's a 65-year-old woman who must have been smoking like a 20-year-old Playboy model. Odd detail. Their deception was uncovered, leading to their expulsion. Back in Canaan, tensions between Abram and Lot's household forced them to part ways. After Lot's capture in a regional war, Abraham heroically rescued him, and he bumped into Melchizedek, king of Salem, who was a high priest of the Most High God. Many questions abound for this figure. Anyways, around this period, Abraham lamented his lack of an heir, though God reassured him. Sarai offered her maid, Hagar, to bear a child. Hagar bore Ishmael, but tensions arose, leading to her exile. Can anyone say Jerry Springer any faster? Later, God renewed his covenant, renaming Abram to Abraham and Sarai to Sarah, foretelling the birth of Isaac and introducing circumcision. 3 divine visitors confirmed Isaac's upcoming birth and also warned of Sodom's impending destruction. Despite Abraham's intercessions, Sodom was destroyed, though Lot escaped, albeit the tragic consequences of his wife turning into a pillar of salt. Oh, and his 2 daughters drugging their father with wine to sleep with him to carry on his seed. In Gerar, Abraham, fearing for Sarah's safety, again called her his sister. King Abimelech took Sarah, but returned her upon realizing the deceit. Shortly thereafter, Isaac was born. Now, who's the real baby's daddy here? Abimelech or Abraham? Anyways, following more disputes involving Hagar and Ishmael, Abraham banished them, but they were divinely protected. In a supreme test of faith, God commanded Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. As Abraham obeyed, an angel intervened, providing a ram as a substitute. Sarah passed away at the age of 137 years, and Abraham secured a burial site in Machpelah. Abraham then arranged for Isaac's marriage and had more children with his second wife, Keturah. Ensuring Isaac was his sole heir, Abraham passed away at 175 years of age and was buried beside Sarah by Isaac and Ishmael. Eventually, his son Isaac would have children named Jacob and Esau. Then Jacob would get the promise and be renamed to Israel. Israel's favorite son was Joseph, who would get them into Egypt. You got to read the story. And eventually they would become slaves for 430 years, all to have Moses take them on an exodus to the promised land, with Joshua leading victorious battles to get what God promised Abraham at the outset. The quest for the historical Abraham. Searching for Abe. From the hollowed echoes of the Dead Sea Scrolls, biblical authors have painted vivid portraits of iconic figures, treating them as historical luminaries, regardless of some of the rather eyebrow-raising assertions. Abraham's age of 175, A walk in the park compared to Adam's whopping 930-year tenure. Through the annals of history, historians and ecclesiastical scholars, with fervor akin to investigative detectives, have endeavored to tether these biblical tales to the realm of historical accuracy. Their tools? Intricate genealogies and comparative historiography, striving to lend the patriarchal chronicles an air of authenticity befitting the second millennium BCE. Yet, as time's relentless march continues, our academic arsenal has evolved, providing sharper instruments for dissecting the veracity of these age-old tales. The unquestioned existence of these biblical heavyweights was the modus operandi, even for the most discerning scholars, until, that is, the 20th century's latter half bestowed upon us a plot twist. Upon uncovering the intricate tapestry of sources that constitute the Genesis and patriarchal narratives, theories abounded. The documentary hypothesis, the supplementary hypothesis, and their scholarly siblings arose, all questing to reconcile the improbability of Moses single-handedly penning this voluminous work. By the 19th century, that notion had all but retired to the annals of antiquated thought. As we embark on this documentary, we'll be dancing on the shoulders of academic titans, luminaries like Thomas L. Thompson, John Van Cedars, Russell Gamirkin, Philip Wagenbaum, Philip R. Davies, and dare I say Neil Godfrey have not just entered the field of Old Testament studies, they've rocked its very foundations. Thompson and Cedars in the 1970s, in particular, have swayed scholarly consensus from assured affirmation of a patriarch's existence to an enlightened skepticism, suggesting the upbeat nature of an archaeological quest for their remains. Thompson's magnum opus, The Historicity of the Patriarchal Narratives, fittingly culminates this sentiment. So fasten your intellectual seatbelts, dear viewers. This is going to be a cerebral ride.
We have seen in the foregoing chapter of the received tradition about Abraham's journey from Ur of the Chaldees to Canaan by the way of Haran is not an originally independent tradition about Abraham. Rather, it is a historiographical reconstruction which is based on several originally independent and conflicting traditions, if not only must be understood as unhistorical, but any attempt to find movements analogous to Abraham's in the history of the Near East are essentially misdirected for the purposes of biblical interpretation. The intentions of the biblical traditions about the patriarchs are not comparable to those of the modern historian. They are rather sociological, political, and religious. Those attempts at interpretation of these traditions which willfully neglect the implications of their formations and structure can justly be dismissed as historicism. Moreover, we have seen that the biblical chronologies are not grounded on historical memory, but are rather based on a very late theological schema that presupposes a very unhistorical worldview. Those efforts to use the biblical narratives for a reconstruction of the history of the Near East in a manner comparable to the use of the archives of Mari and similar finds can justly be dismissed as fundamentalist. Though we have argued that the quest for the historical Abraham is basically fruitless occupation both for the historian and the student of the Bible, the question about the historical background of the patriarchal narratives is a question to which the historical criticism, with the help of the ancient Near Eastern history and archaeology, can give very concrete answers.
In 1974, this piece of writing was so scandalous when it emerged that its author, Thompson, found himself facing a decade-long involuntary vacation from employment. By 1992, his academic antics led to an unceremonious exit from Marquette University's hallowed halls. From the disco-infused 70s to the grunge era of the 90s, he, alongside the likes of Philip R. Davies, Niels Peter Lemsky, and Keith W. Whitelam, was knee-deep in decoding the enigma dubbed Ancient Israel. Their work wasn't just groundbreaking, it was earth-shattering, especially in the world of Old Testament studies. Much of his brilliant banter, most of his argumentation, was centered around names of the patriarchs, as Thompson says in his 1974 book.
It will be my contention throughout this process of historicizing Genesis is a serious error in biblical interpretation, and to the extent that it depends upon the evidence we have from Near Eastern nomenclature, totally unfounded. Some questions which must be asked of our evidence are: do the names really demonstrate or make more probable the historicity of the patriarchs? Do they help to date the period in which the patriarchs belong? Do they support the thesis that the narratives of Genesis mirror the history of the second millennium, specifically the movements of the Amorites?
Ultimately, Thompson broke the consensus on Abraham's historicity. Most critical scholars these days have forsaken the attempt to finding Abe. If there ever was a guy, he's lost to us, as is his sons, all the way to Moses. If there ever was an Exodus, it is absolutely nothing like the Bible describes it. The same can be said about the united monarchy with King David and Solomon. The more we dig, the more scandalous it seems that the Bible is not historically accurate. But is that the author's goal? Are they trying to convince their readers and hearers of a fake history, as Plato recommended in his writings? Russell Gamirkin has spoken several times about Plato's noble lies and how to create a great nation. In the historical pursuit of the biblical patriarchs, many scholars equipped with both archaeological tools and scripture sought empirical confirmation of these iconic figures. In Egypt, one is presented with names from First Immediate Period, circa 2181 to 2055 BCE, associated with Abraham and believed to be Amorites. This association arises because of the phonetic resemblance to the Amuru from South Mesopotamia, emerging around the same epoch. Parallelly, the Hyksos, linked to Jacob and Joseph, are perceived as invaders with Amorite affiliations. Curiously, it's the nomenclature of these patriarchs that seemingly connect these historical dots, allowing scholars to interpret these tales as condensed history of the Near East during the second millennium. Thompson's scholarship underscores that these patriarchal names weren't exclusive to the second millennium BCE, but echoed into the 4th century BCE across diverse locales, including Mesopotamia. The existence of Abraham has often been posited on the corroborative elements like the geographic references in Genesis. However, it's essential to note that these places endured well into the Hellenistic era. Thompson delves deeply into the significance of Abraham's name in this context. I proffer a contention. When drafting foundational stories of a nation, it's likely that authors might retroject their primeval figures into antiquated settings, lending a veneer of authenticity. Take, for instance, the esteemed archaeologist Israel Finkelstein. He views the biblical narration of Canaan's conquest in Joshua as less of an authentic historical account and more as a late 7th century BCE ideological blueprint depicting an inspirational conquest under King Josiah of Judah. Finkelstein hypothesizes that this conquest narrative possibly originated in Israel's northern kingdom around the early 8th century BCE, inspired by the remnants of past disturbances. This perspective gains weight considering the lack of archaeological traces for many cited cities or their emergence only in the 8th and 7th centuries BCE? How can one validate a 12th century BCE conquest of cities that archaeologically appear half a millennium later? By this logic, the absence of evidence for Moses' mass exodus from Egypt could whimsically be attributed to celestial beings equipped with dustbusters. Such narratives likely embellished retellings of pure literary creations often weave in contemporaneous nuances, inadvertently revealing their true temporal origins. To draw a playful analogy, discovering a gospel where Peter cruises in a Honda Civic would unmistakably hint at a narrative crafted in a more modern milieu. Similarly, Genesis contains anachronisms that point to its later historical genesis, pun intended. In our preceding video explorations, we've journeyed through the tapestries of myth and lore underpinning Genesis 1 through 11. Now, as we delve into the tales of Abraham, there's a prevailing sentiment that we've anchored ourselves in the firm ground of historical narrative. Numerous commentaries underscore this demarcation, suggesting a transition from myth to reality, right between Genesis 11 and 12. For some scholars, this transformation commences even earlier, with Genesis 11:10 enveloping Terah and his kin's expedition from Ur to Haran in the cloak of history. Over time, I've developed a certain affinity for those discerning minds who interpret these passages as masterful narratives rather than concrete history. This naturally begets the query: when was Genesis scribed? A significant portion of the scholarly community posits its creation during the exile or perhaps the post-exile era, with a handful placing bets on the Persian period. It's paramount to note that their perspective primarily hinges on the priestly source, though not all contend that Genesis, in its entirety, emerged during these times. Today, I aim to illuminate the Hellenistic shades painted on Genesis, post the epoch when Alexander the Great unfurled the essence of the Greek world upon the vast expanse known biblically. Neil Godfrey curates a thought-provoking blog, the link to which is available in the description below with all the sources. His writings delve deep into concepts that sometimes take a while to permeate American scholarly circles. Of particular note is his discourse on Niels Peter Lemke, which I found to be intellectually stimulating. Here are some points in favor of a Hellenistic date after 300 BCE for the Old Testament. Number 1. It is a fact that the history of Israel, as told by the Old Testament, has little, if anything, to do with the real historical developments in Palestine until at least the later part of the Hebrew monarchy. 2. An extensive part of this literature should be considered the creation of the Jewish diaspora. First and foremost, the patriarchal narratives, the story of the Exodus about the Israelites in Egypt and their escape from Egypt, but also the conquest narratives in Joshua. All of these aim at one and the same issue, at the more or less utopian idea that a major Jewish kingdom, even empire, should be established or reestablished in Palestine, an idea that emerged in spite of the fact that it had no background in ancient Israelite empire. Number 3, the writers who invented the history of Israel seem to have modeled their history on a Greek pattern. Herodotus, being the earliest point of comparison, there are a number of similarities between the histories of Herodotus and the Old Testament. Both histories have as their beginning a perspective that encompasses the whole world as such, and this perspective narrows down to single nations only at a later point, respectively the Greek and the Hebrew. The biblical historians display a knowledge of Greek tradition, and this could hardly have been the case before Greek historians were to become known and read in the Near East. Number 4. The Persian period does not seem to fit the requirements of being the time when the historical books of the Old Testament were written down. First of all, it would have to be proved that Greek authors were known and extensively read in the Persian Empire, and I very much doubt that this was the case. Lemke goes into far more responses to this issue of a later dating of the Old Testament, but consider it as we dive deeper into this documentary. Philip R. Davies, an esteemed professor of biblical studies at the University of Sheffield, delves deeply into these matters. His assertions have sparked fervent debates within academic corridors. Davies contends, based on archaeological evidence and rigorous analysis of the biblical narrative, that the biblical Israel is more myth than reality. He posits that figures such as Abraham and Moses are not historical entities, and kingdoms attributed to David and Solomon did not exist as described. According to Davies, the biblical depiction of Israel might have been crafted as late as the Persian era, challenging traditional chronologies. Problems with dating the Old Testament to the Persian era. We have very little information about the Jewish population in the Persian era. We have almost nothing apart from the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, and the historicity of these books has also come under scrutiny. Some doubt there was ever even a mission by Ezra. The autobiography of Nehemiah may be no more historical than many other similar examples of autobiographical genre in the Greek world. Biblical historians have traditionally written of the period of Persian rule as time of peace and prosperity. Judah was allowed administrative independence. Jerusalem was organized as a prosperous temple burgher society. But the evidence we have could just as easily be interpreted otherwise. That Judah's independence may be more comparable to modern crumbling societies left on their own and with a great deal of administrative independence to provide a sad picture of local incompetence. Maybe they did not interfere in local affairs because they did not care. The temple burgher society has nothing more than hypotheses to support it. And the account of a band of Greek mercenaries being able to waltz through the empire, kill a Persian governor, and walk out again in Xenophon's Anabasis is evidence of Persian administrative incompetence. The archaeological evidence we need for the Persian period is not likely to come to light. Israeli archaeologists have demonstrated a contempt for the Persian period and removed its remains to rubbish dumps in order to get down to the real Israelite layers. Lemke cites A. Mazar's Archaeology of the Land of the Bible, 586 BCE, as illustrative to this attitude. As for the Hellenistic period, it should never be forgotten that the revitalization of the ancient Near East only became a fact after the Greek takeover. It is an established fact that city life vastly expanded after the conquest of Alexander. Here we must realize what happened in Jerusalem and in Palestine. Innovations that were comparable, although on a smaller scale, to the cultural developments in Syria, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. Scholars may nurse very romantic ideas about what may have happened in the nooks and crannies of pre-Hellenistic Palestine, in a society considerably poorer than the one found there. For example, during the Late Bronze Age. A more worldly and realistic assessment of facts suggests that the Persian period was not the time when the Old Testament could have been written down. Hardly any parallel exists to such a development, but a lot of evidence that says the Hellenistic age was the formative period of early Jewish thought and literature as witnessed by the Old Testament itself. I would refer everyone to Jonathan Adler, the archaeologist, who is confirming much of these statements. In Plato and the Creation of the Hebrew Bible, Russell Gamirkin delves into an intriguing premise. He postulates that a myriad of laws within the Hebrew Bible draw parallels more closely to the works of Plato rather than the traditions of the ancient Near East. Both Gamirkin and Philip Wagenbaum theorized that Plato's philosophical treatises were seminal influences, shaping the biblical author's formulation of idealistic national laws. Russell Gamirkin on Foundation Stories. When we look at Greek literature, we can see that the biblical tales of the Israelites' exodus under Moses and their conquest under Joshua are quite similar to the Greek foundation stories. Even though this kind of storytelling wasn't common in the ancient Near East, it was very popular among the Greeks during the Hellenistic period. This section delves into the common themes in Greek foundation stories and how they compare to Moses leading the Israelites to the Promised Land. Greek foundation stories can be set in different eras. There are mythical times, that's when gods and humans lived together before major floods, like that of Deucalion or Noah. There's legendary times marked by heroes and ending around the Trojan War, and the more factual, archaic, and historical periods. Direct interactions between gods and humans were limited to the mythical and legendary periods. In later times, people would seek advice or guidance from the gods at temples or sacred sites. While some stories were entirely set in legendary times, most foundation tales started with the promises of land made during this era, but the actual settlement happened in the more factual, archaic, or historical periods. Promises of ancestral lands are a recurring theme in many Greek foundation tales. They serve as a foundational myth that supports later conquests and settlements of specific territories. Often these promises were made to renowned heroes like Heracles, Aeneas, or members of the Argonaut expedition. As these heroes journeyed, they would pass through territories that their descendants would eventually settle. Often, gods like Apollo would grant these lands to the heroes during their travels. Even if the heroes settled elsewhere or even passed away in a different land, their divine claim to these lands would be handed down to their descendants. It might take several generations before the descendants actually settled these promised lands. A famous example of this narrative theme is Heraclius' adventures, where he received divine rights to various places during his Mediterranean travels. This narrative style was also used to justify the Spartans' colonization efforts, citing Heracles' journeys. Another example is the story of Cyrene in North Africa. As per the accounts of poets Pindar and Apollonius of Rhodes, when the Argonauts arrived at the Libyan coast, Poseidon's son gave Euphemus a symbolic chunk of Libyan soil, marking it as a territory under his rule. This token of rulership was passed down until Battus, a descendant, founded Cyrene in Libya. Another special case is Aeneas, who after the Trojan War journeyed the Mediterranean but never visited Latium's promised land. However, he was prophesied at Troy that his descendants would create a city, Rome, destined for greatness. Drawing parallels, Weinfeld highlighted the similarities between the land promises given to the biblical figures like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and those given to heroes like Heracles and Aeneas. The stories of these patriarchs served as a prelude to the foundation of the Israelite nation by Moses and Joshua. Similarly, Greek tales about ancient heroes and foundational ancestors provided a historical context for subsequent movements and conquests. The Israelites' journey and settlement into the Promised Land mirrors Greek myths like the return of the Heraclids, usually foundation stories, which explain how a group settled in a new territory, begin by detailing the problems that made them leave their original home. These issues could be overpopulation, famine, disease outbreaks, natural disasters, economic problems, internal conflicts, forced exile, military defeats, or escaping potential conquest and enslavement. In one ancient Jewish story written by Hecataeus of Abdera, around 315 BCE, it's said that Egypt became overpopulated, leading the Egyptians to send settlers to places including Babylon and Judea. Another tale from Manetho, written around 285 BCE, claims that Jerusalem and Judea were first inhabited by the Hyksos, foreign rulers who took over Egypt, but were later forced out by the Egyptians due to a disease outbreak linked to the Hyksos' ungodly practices. In contrast, the biblical Exodus story, written around 270 BCE, presents a different viewpoint. The Egyptians faced plagues as punishment for enslaving the Israelites, and only after suffering these calamities did the Pharaoh let them go. This narrative of escaping from bondage fits the pattern of Hellenistic foundation stories and is a consistent theme in biblical tales. The well-known practice of the Egyptians using slave labor for grand projects such as building pyramids reinforces this narrative. While the miraculous rescue of the Israelites is unique to the biblical account, their quest for freedom aligns well with Greek tales. A pivotal moment in the Exodus story is when God chooses Moses to be the liberator and guide for the Jewish people. This revelation occurs when Moses, in exile from Egypt, discovers a holy site in the Sinai desert. God informs him that he has been chosen to lead the Israelites out of Egypt to a new homeland with Aaron's assistance. Although hesitant and unsure, Moses accepts this significant responsibility. In the biblical story, Moses' divine selection to lead mirrored a common trend seen in Greek foundation tales. Typically in these tales, an oracle, usually at the famed Delphi sanctuary dedicated to Apollo, would choose the leader, termed oikist, for a colonization mission. This oikist held various roles: expedition head, military leader, spiritual guide, and law enforcer. It was a reoccurring theme for these leaders to be unexpectedly chosen. Guidance for their journey, including specific landmarks and signs to determine settlement areas, often came from the Delphi oracle. On some journeys, a prophet or spiritual guide accompanied the leader, aiding in establishing the new settlement. The biblical account showcases the Israelites as an organized, armed group, constantly prepared for battle as they journeyed from Egypt. Moses was their military strategist, but their triumphs, whether in battle against various tribes or major exodus from Egypt, were attributed to the divine intervention of Yahweh. This description of the Exodus sets the stage for the next phase, the conquest, where Joshua takes over Moses' military role. Throughout these narratives, the main emphasis is on the armed men. Women, children, and livestock are seen as under their protection, while the fighters are the focus of accounts and are explicitly numbered. The portrayal of this migration, then, is of an armed group transitioning from one territory to conquer another. This depiction aligns with Greek tales, where colonization parties often journeyed as armed contingents. It's at Delphi that Apollo, recognized as the god guiding migrations and settlements, was consulted. In the Bible, Mount Sinai serves as the pivotal spot where God communicates with Moses. This return to Sinai in the Exodus narrative is the backdrop for the profound moment where Moses climbs the mountain and receives God's commandments. In Greek tales, the leader often revisits the Delphi oracle for advice on pressing issues. This trip back to the oracle sometimes left the expedition group alone for extended times, akin to Moses' 40-day stay on the mountain. Moses, as the lawgiver, fits seamlessly within the Greek narrative structure. In Greek tales, the oikist typically established laws for the new settlement. Historical accounts and legends often credit ancient law codes to singular prominent figures, such as Lycurgus or Solon, who sometimes were believed to have received these laws directly from deities. Established processes even allowed for proposed law codes to be presented at an oracle, like Delphi, to gain divine approval. While Greek narratives often depict lawgivers getting divine laws via specific ceremonial methods, the Bible portrays Moses directly meeting God at Sinai amid an awe-inspiring natural display. At Mount Sinai, Moses supervised the creation of a special tent and its items. This tent wasn't just a place of worship, but was believed to be the dwelling place of God. As the Israelites traveled through the wilderness, God was thought to accompany them within this tent. Moses was the main spiritual leader for the Israelites during their journey, much like the oikist in Greek stories. The oikist was also a religious leader, representing the god Apollo during their colonization missions. When the Greeks ventured into new territories, they believed they were also relocating their gods. A sacred fire symbolized this move, which they used for religious rituals during the journey. Apollo's famous sanctuary in Delphi often gave them guidance on where to settle and build their new sanctuaries. In the Bible, before entering their desired land, the Israelites sent scouts to check it out. However, they were disheartened by the challenges they'd face in conquering it. As a result, they spent 40 years wandering, during which the entire soldier generation died. Similarly, in some Greek tales, explorers were sent first to assess new lands. These colonization efforts, whether in myth or real history, often faced challenges. They might take much longer than expected, sometimes spanning several generations. There were times when the settlers even thought of going back to their original homeland due to homesickness or settlement challenges. Both the biblical account and Greek tales emphasized the importance of establishing foundational laws and systems for their new societies. For Israelites, after their 40-year journey, there was a renewed emphasis on the laws, particularly in the book of Deuteronomy. This highlighted how they should live once they settled. All these guidelines were officially approved by the community and were meant to be publicly displayed in their new homeland. Similarly, when Joshua took the people across the Jordan, he quickly set up an altar and inscribed these laws, ensuring they were practiced. Like in the Bible, Greek colonization stories also focused on establishing foundational laws for their new territories. The leader, or oikist, who was similar to Moses, set these laws. The oikist laid down rules about political, religious, and military structures, the society's class system, land distribution, and citizens' rights. Just as in the biblical narrative, these laws were approved by the community, usually with rituals and oaths. Often these guidelines were inscribed on stone tablets for everyone to see. When the Israelites reached the Promised Land, they were coming back to the original home of their ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This story reminds us of the return of the Heraclids in Greek tales. In both stories, a divine command encouraged the takeover of the local people. Similarly, the journey of Joshua in conquering part of the Promised Land matches Greek stories about the founding of new colonies. In both the Bible and Greek tales, the deity presents the land as a gift. The conquering colonizers believed they were not just allowed, but obligated to take over. Most of the time, the native people were either defeated and enslaved or forced to move. Sometimes the takeover was explained with a moral reason, adding it to the legend. The oikist, or colony leader, often became a revered hero due to his military leadership, but starting a colony wasn't always smooth. The newcomers often faced challenges from locals, which sometimes made the Greeks rethink or give up their plans. Just like how the Greeks felt shame for not taking over the lands given by their god Apollo's oracle, the Israelites were also criticized in the book of Judges for not fully conquering their promised land. The oikist had various responsibilities, including picking up the main city's spot, creating religious areas and structures, organizing festivals, and dividing the land among the settlers. The actions of Joshua during the conquest phase bear a lot of similarities to Greek colonization accounts, as detailed by Weinfeld. Once the colony was fully established, its completion was marked by the death of its founding figure. The later generations would remember this founder and would often dedicate a special cult to honor them, usually at their burial site. For colonies set up in the historical times, these burial sites were typically in the city's central area. In legendary tales, the exact location of the burial might be lost to time. While Moses' burial place remains a mystery, the burial sites of Joshua and the chief priest Eleazar were highlighted, suggesting these founders were deeply respected. The tradition of the oikist often involved a yearly celebration that remembered the founding of the colony under the oikist's leadership. One of the most famous such celebrations was the Dorians' Carnea Festival, honoring the establishments of Sparta, Thera, and Cyrene. The Carnea was initially a festival that celebrated farming, paying tribute to Carnus, an old ram god. Later, this god was associated with Apollo. Apollo Carneus signifies Apollo as the guide of migrations. Much like how a ram leads its flock, its particular aspect of Apollo is credited with guiding the Dorian movement to Sparta and other colonization efforts. The 9-day Carnea festival had various activities like the sacrifice of a ram and a recreation of a military journey, which includes dances with weapons and parades with miniature ships. Interestingly, aspects of the Carnea have similarities with the biblical Passover and the Festival of Unleavened Bread. Both started as agricultural festivals, spotlighting the sacrifice of sheep. Over time, these festivals became significant national events, reenacting migration tales. The Passover, in its evolution, portrayed the story of Israelite beginnings, similar to how Carnea portrayed Spartan beginnings. This suggests that the Passover might have been influenced by Greek foundation narratives and festivals that Jews encountered in the early Hellenistic period. The biblical tales about patriarchs and the events like the Exodus and the conquest fit the mold of the Greek theses or foundation stories. But every story has its unique elements. For example, while some Greek colonization tales spoke of escape from slavery or lawgivers being divinely inspired, the biblical Exodus and the laws given at Sinai are described with divine miracles not commonly seen in Greek stories. The writers of Deuteronomy recognized these special aspects of Israel's foundation narrative. In Deuteronomy 4:32-34, highlighted the exceptional nature of Israel's origin story, especially the direct involvement of Yahweh as the savior and provider of laws, setting it apart from other foundation tales known primarily in the Greek contexts. National foundation myths, Greeks and Jews. In a discerningly pinned blog post, Neil Godfrey delves into the intriguing parallels between Phrixus and Isaac. Such a comparison, he asserts, is indispensable when examining Abraham's narrative. One cannot sidestep the intertwined tales of Isaac or Jacob. Abraham stands as the proverbial patriarch of the Jews, celebrated not only for the inaugural covenant of circumcision, but also for his heart-wrenched act of near sacrifice of his beloved son, Isaac. Godfrey's insights are underpinned by Philip Wagenbaum's seminal work, Argonauts of the Desert. Through rigorous contemplation, Godfrey offers an astute interpretation of Wagenbaum's contentions, showcasing his commendable grasp on the subject matter. Godfrey expresses it this way. Philip Wagenbaum, in 2008, defended his anthropology doctoral thesis, Argonauts of the Desert, Structural Analysis of the Hebrew Bible. He applies the structural analysis of myths as developed by Claude Lévi-Strauss to the Bible, something Lévi-Strauss himself never got around to doing, although he did eventually encourage biblical scholars to do so. In Wagenbaum's words, for Lévi-Strauss, a version of a myth is always derived from an existing adaptation, originating most of the time from a different culture and language. A myth must always be analyzed in comparison to its variants within the same cultural area where contacts between populations are proven. Wagenbaum is analyzing the Bible narratives as myths, though he concedes they may contain some historical elements, and comparing the accounts with narratives and laws from Greek literature. While ancient Near Eastern literature offers many laws similar to those in the Bible, he thinks the Greek literature has not been explored in this context to its full potential. I am already wondering about the gospel narratives and the relationship between Jewish and Greek mythical and literary culture in this context, Godfrey says. For Lévi-Strauss, similarities between myth that may appear as coincidental at first look must be investigated more deeply. This investigation may ultimately reveal that the analyzed narratives are actually variants of the same myth. Lévi-Strauss builds a very strong case for his arguments in his analysis of Native American myths. The story of the bird nester can be found in hundreds of different variants in every part of both South and North America, proving that the same initial story spread itself through millennia of oral diffusion. Lévi-Strauss describes how the order of the episodes of a myth can be reversed from one variant to another, and that many motifs can be inverted. Lévi-Strauss sought to discover universal rules of transformation in all myths, similar to the discovery of universal principles in structural linguistics and phonology. The aim of Lévi-Strauss was to show that mankind thinks everywhere the same, that there is no objective distinction between so-called primitive and civilized thoughts. Parallelism is not a dirty word, like the proverbial hammer that cares not whether it is used to build a house or bash the skull of a prisoner. Analyzing parallels can serve valid and good and invalid and bad functions. Parallelisms must not be analyzed in an isolated way, but one must try to find out a possible narrative structure that links the similarities together. In other words, the similarity is not sufficient by itself to speculate about any possible borrowing. We must examine the place and role of these in their own contexts. Phrixus and Isaac under the microscope. Godfrey continues. So with the context of the methods of Lévi-Strauss in mind, no one will jump to the conclusion that the well-known parallelism between the Greek myth of Phrixus and the binding of Isaac indicates a source-derivative relationship. What will be needed after examining the parallels is an examination of the place and role of these stories in their own contexts. That step will probably have to wait for the next post, Godfrey says. Here is the Phrixus myth in hopefully a quick, easy-to-read ladder with a crucial key noted in step 10. 1. Athamas, king of Boeotia, married Nephili, a cloud goddess created in the image of Hera by Zeus. 2. Athamas and Nephili had twin children, a son, Phrixus, and a daughter, Helle. 3. Athamos afterwards rejected Nephili and married Ino. 4. Ino hated her stepchildren, Phrixus and Helle, so plotted to have them killed by their own father. Number 5. Ino bribed messengers who told King Athamos that the Oracle of Delphi, speaking for the god Apollo, required the sacrifice of Phrixus on Mount Laphysian in order to end a famine in Boeotia. Number 6. Just as Athamas was about to sacrifice his son Phrixus, Zeus, or Nephili in other versions, sent a golden winged ram to rescue Phrixus and Helle by flying away with them. Number 7. Helle fell off, hence the Hellespont, Helle's Sea. Number 8. The ram brought Phrixus safely to Colchis, Georgia. Number 9. In gratitude, Phrixus sacrificed to Zeus the golden ram that saved him and hung its golden fleece on an oak tree. Number 10. Now, while it may seem quite inconsequential, probably the most important ingredient of this myth is that it is the prologue of the epic of the Argonauts, who will come to Colchis years later to bring the famous Golden Fleece back to Greece. The significance of this will become apparent in my next post, where I begin to compare the structured context of this myth and the binding of Isaac. We can recognize the resemblance to the binding of Isaac in Genesis 22. To test the faith of Abraham, God orders him to sacrifice his only beloved son on Mount Moriah. Abraham submits to the command and binds his son. At the last moment, God sends an angel and interrupts the sacrifice. Abraham sees a ram stuck in a bush and sacrifices that ram instead of his son. But note the inversion of one small detail. In the Greek version, the ram is killed first. Then its fleece is hung in a tree, whereas in the biblical version, the ram is first stuck in a bush and sacrificed afterwards. This inversion of detail can lead us to wonder whether these stories could both derive from a common source. One could derive from the other, or that the resemblance is only due to coincidence. Therefore, we must examine the place and role of these stories in their own contexts, respectively, the Epic of the Argonauts and the biblical narrative. Godfrey continues in another blog with his astute observations. See Godfrey's comparisons here. One, you've got this divine command to sacrifice one's son. It's real in the case of Isaac, a lie in another in the case of Phrixus. Phrixus's stepmother bribed messengers to tell the father that God required the sacrifice. One, the father's pious, unquestioning submission to the command. 2, the last-minute deliverance of the human victim by a divinely sent ram. Direct command to the father in the case of Isaac, direct command to the sacrificial victim in the case of Phrixus. 3, the fastening of the ram in a tree or bush. Before the sacrifice of the ram in the case of Isaac, after the sacrifice of the ram in the case of Phrixus. 4, the sacrifice of the ram as a substitute for Isaac, as a thanksgiving for Phrixus. What is significant is that these narrative units in common to both stories exist at a level independent of the particular stories. They can be inverted, reordered to create different stories. The question to ask is, are these units similar by coincidence, or has one set been borrowed from the other? That particular detail about the ram in the tree or thicket is certainly distinctive enough to justify this question in relation to the whole set. Firstly, given that it is no longer considered quote-unquote fringe, except maybe among a large portion of American biblical scholars, where the influence of conservative and even evangelical religion is relatively strong, to consider the Bible's quote-unquote Old Testament books being written as late as the Persian or even Hellenistic eras. And given the proximity of Jewish and Greek cultures, the possibility of direct borrowing cannot be rejected out of hand. Secondly, the chances of the Jewish story of the binding of Isaac being influenced by Greek myth is increased if both stories are located in a similar structural position within parallel narratives. Both near-human sacrifice narratives serve as the prologues to larger tales of, 1, divine promises of a land to be inherited by a hero's descendants, 2, a special divinely chosen people, 3, a prearranged time schedule of 4 generations before the land would be inherited, 4, deliverance through a leader who initially protests because he stutters, 5, an additional delay because of human failure to hold fast to a divine promise, 6, a wandering through desert with a sacred vessel, 7, guiding divine revelations along the way. Not only are both tales of escape from human sacrifice prologues to these larger comparative narratives, but they also serve as a reference point in both. They hold the respective larger stories together by serving as the origin point of the divine promises that guide the subsequent narratives of journeying to a promised land. And that origin point is referenced by way of reminder throughout the subsequent narratives. The biblical narrative is about much more than the way the children of Abraham inherited the land of Canaan. And here is where Philip Wachbaum, in his 2008 doctoral thesis, Argonauts of the Desert, Structural Analysis of the Hebrew Bible, draws attention to the extensive similarities between Plato's writings and the Bible's narratives. Both contain a general flood, being the beginning of a new era in civilization, with a patriarchal age following, the rise of cities and kingship, and the development of laws, and a description of an ideal state. The laws in the Pentateuch are often remarkably alike the laws proposed by Plato. You've got laws that require a central religious authority. You have laws of a need for pure bloodlines, especially for priests. Laws that condemn homosexuality, witchcraft, magic. Laws of inheritance, boundary stones. Laws of allowing slaves to be taken from foreign peoples only, laws against the need for a king, laws governing involuntary homicide, laws regarding rebellious children, laws against usury, against taking too much fruit from one's fields, and quite a few more, and often found listed in the same order between the Greek and Hebrew texts. The ideal state, moreover, is divided into 12 lots of land given to 12 tribes. The king, it is warned, is subject to the vices of love, and this will lead to oppressive tyranny. One might think here of the sins of David and Solomon. Wagenbaum applies the structural analysis of myths as developed by Claude Levi-Strauss to the Bible, and one can see his coverage is much more extensive than can be covered in a few blog posts. Here is where Godfrey is focusing only on structural place of the Phrixus, Isaac sacrifices and their respective wider narratives. The Phrixus episode serves as an introduction to the adventures of Jason and the Argonauts. And this set of adventures functions as an explanation of the founding of the Greek colony of Cyrene in North Africa, Libya. The Argonaut epic and the Bible narrative. Neil Godfrey earlier written a series of 6 posts on the resonances between the Argonautica as told by Apollonius of Rhodes. They are found by starting at the bottom of this Argonautica archive, but this post is addressing Wagenbaum's thesis. The full Argonaut epic is found in Pindar's fourth Pythian ode. It had earlier been referenced in Homer's Odyssey, Book 12, 69 to 72, in Hesiod's Theogony, 990 to 1005, and in Herodotus, the foundation of Cyrene and the interrupted sacrifice of Phrixus. Euripides wrote 2 plays titled Phrixus, now lost to us. And of course, Apollonius of Rhodes wrote the epic poem in imitation of Homer, the Argonautica. The main sources for this epic relate it to the founding of Cyrene. Pindar's ode is even dedicated to the king of Cyrene. This compares with the early Bible narrative from Abraham to Moses, relating to the settling of Canaan. Jason, leader of the Argonauts, belonged to the same extended family as Phrixus, all being descended from Aeolus. Zeus was angry with the descendants of Aeolus over the attempted sacrifice of Phrixus by his father, and to appease his divine wrath, Jason embarked in the Argo with a band of followers, the Argonauts, to retrieve the golden fleece. This was the fleece of the ram that had saved Phrixus at the last moment from being sacrificed. Triton, son of the sea god Poseidon, appeared in human form and gave one of the Argonauts, Euphemus, a gift of a handful of Libyan soil as a token of a promise that his descendants would return and colonize the land. Had Euphemus succeeded in keeping the soil to plant appropriately in his own home area, his descendants would have returned to colonize only 4 generations later. But since the soil was washed overboard and its particles landed on the island of Thera instead, 17 generations would have to pass, and Cyrene would have to be colonized by the descendants of the Argonauts after first settling in Thera. This is the reverse of the order in which we read of the sacrifice and the promise in the biblical narrative. There, Abraham is promised a land and afterward prepares to sacrifice Isaac. The Argonauts seek to appease Zeus's anger of the attempted sacrifice of Phrixus by retrieving the fleece of the ram that saved him, and the promise of the land of Cyrene for the descendants of the Argonauts is made afterwards. Generations later, after the descendants of the Argonauts had settled on Thera, a direct descendant of Euphemus was commanded through the Delphic oracle to lead his people to settle and establish Cyrene in fulfillment of the promise made at the time of the Argonauts were retrieving the fleece of the ram that had saved Phrixus. This descendant was known as Battus, a name that means stutterer. He argued against the divine command on the ground that he was not a great warrior and that he had a speech impediment. But the Delphic oracle refused to listen to reason and made him do as he was told anyway. This sounds like Moses. Herodotus tells us that Battus ruled Cyrene for the familiar 40 years. That doesn't sound familiar. We are reminded of the promise to Abraham that his descendants would settle in Canaan after 400 years of slavery in Egypt. Egypt serves as a delaying detour on their way to their destiny, as Thera was in the Greek myth. God commands Moses to lead his people to Canaan by invoking his promise to give it to the fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses at first refuses by pleading that he stutters. If Battus ruled the Argonauts for 40 years, Moses, also once called a king and known as a king in Philo, led his people for 40 years also. This narrative structure, joining Abraham to Moses, echoes with accuracy the promise made to Euphemus and its fulfillment by descendant Battus. Both Moses and Battus invoked their trouble speaking in order to avoid their divine mission, and both ruled over their people during 40 years. Therefore, the similarities between the interrupted sacrifice of Isaac and that of Phrixus appear as part of a similar narrative structure. It seems as though Abraham plays 2 different characters from the Greek epic. King Athamas who almost sacrificed his son Phrixus, an episode from the beginning of the epic, and the Argonaut Euphemus, who received the promise of land for his descendants, an episode from the ending of the epic. The order of the episodes has been reversed. In the same way, the detail of the ram hung on the tree after the sacrifice in the Greek version appears inverted to the account of the ram stuck in the bush before the sacrifice in Genesis. To repeat a few lines I quoted in my earlier post, this is Neil Godfrey speaking, but this time without the omissions. Parallelisms must not be analyzed in an isolated way, but one must try to find out the possible narrative structure that links the similarities together. In other words, the similarity between Phrixus and Isaac is not sufficient by itself to speculate about any possible borrowing, but when placed in the wider framework of the Epic of the Argonauts and the foundation of the colony of Cyrene, it allows us to question a likely influence of the Greek mythical tradition on the writings of the Old Testament. Philip Wagenbaum notes that his thesis supports the one advanced by Jan Willem Wesselius. In The Origin of the History of Israel, Herodotus's histories as the blueprint for the first books of the Bible, that the narratives in Herodotus have influenced the biblical narrative. But there is one significant clue thus far missing. Wagenbaum's remarks. What might the founding of a colony in Cyrene in Herodotus have to do with the settlement and kingdom established in Canaan by Israel? Wagenbaum points to an answer. We must investigate the writings of another famous Greek writer to find the description of a state meant to be a colony, a state that would be divided into 12 tribes and ruled by perfect God-given laws, the ideal state imagined by Plato in his laws. How late was the Bible, and who really wrote it? Neil Godfrey again comes through, as has Russell Gamirkin and several of the scholars we've brought up so far. But I'm impressed with what Neil puts here. Here's what he has to say. It has become a truism that the Bible, or let's be specific and acknowledge we are discussing the Old Testament or Jewish Hebrew Bible, is a collection of various books composed by multiple authors over many years. All of these authors are said to have coincidentally testified to the one and only true God of the Jewish people. The mere fact that multiple authors spanning generations wrote complementary works, all directed at the reality of this God working in human affairs, is considered proof that we are dealing with a cultural and religious heritage, a common tradition belonging to a single people over time. A few scholars have challenged that thesis, and the most recently published of these is Philip Wagenbaum. He writes, to have a single writer for Genesis through Kings, and possibly for other biblical books, contradicts the idea of the transmission of the divine word and of a tradition proper to a people. The idea of a single author does not conflict with the understanding that the sources of the Bible were drawn from archives of Israelite and Judahite kings, as well as Mesopotamian and Canaanite and other sources. Wagenbaum claims that the traditional scholarly hypotheses of authorship and origins of the Bible are in fact secular rationalizations of cultural myths about the Bible. Let us imagine that Judea has now been conquered for a century, and its sacerdotal class is now fully Hellenized. A man educated in the Greek fashion, perhaps in Alexandria, has grown up learning all the Greek classics, Homer, Hesiod, Herodotus, the great tragic playwrights, Plato, and that which he may have read in the Alexandrian canon, established by Aristophanes of Byzantium and Aristarchus of Samothrace. He wants to create a literary work that can compete with those he has read, one that will give birth to his political and religious utopia, Israel. On the one hand, theories about the origins of the Bible tend to admit that the same writer wrote some books. On the other hand, several books and articles compare Greek myths with the Bible. It is the absence of a synthesis of all these data that is questioned here. Could it be the other way around? Philip Wagenbaum rejects the alternative suggestion that it may have been the Greeks who were influenced by the Bible or related stories from cultures neighboring the Jews. Essentially, the reasons for resisting this idea are: 1, Greek authors were generally identifiable personally, and they quite openly referred to their predecessors and contemporaries whom they emulated and imitated. They had no need to copy the Bible and leave no evidence that they had any awareness of it. 2, the Greeks portrayed their myths through painting and sculpture, and here there's no suggestion of borrowing from Jewish myths. The only contemporary images from Palestine are Canaanite relics. 3, Wagenbaum argues that almost every chapter of the Bible corresponds to a Greek myth, whereas the opposite is not true. 4, Greek myths are linked together in a logical narrative progression from the birth of the gods themselves down to the Trojan War and the beginnings of the historical era. This rich and complex intertextuality has allowed the biblical writer to create an original epic on a fantastic level of sophistication. We will see how the Greek mythical genealogies have been dismantled and reconstructed through a specific filter. I hope that everybody watching this goes and subscribes to Neil Godfrey's blog. He is doing fantastic work mining scholars that are not well known, and we're highlighting them today. Please show him your appreciation. Show Russell Gamirkin. Much of his work was shown in this documentary, and I want more people to show support to the good scholars we bring forward here on Myth Vision.
All right. First of all, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. That was very good work by my brother Myth Vision. And hold on a second here, family. I'm here trying to do two things. I'm not good at multitasking. I'm like the worst. Oh man. All right, so there's a guy in the community by the name of Genesis 49er, man. He likes to bully people over the internet, and he tried to bully my brother, my Dagger Squad brother, who is Fortune. So this is a video called Genesis 49er Exposed. Check it out, man, by 93. Let's see what's really good right now.
Peace and love, family, and welcome back to the channel. For those watching from another channel or just watching me for the first time, my name is Brother 93, and in this video, it's going to be both a response and an example on how to identify and counter bad arguments, like slander, ad hominem attacks, and so forth. The subject of scrutiny here in this video is recent dejected Hebrew Israelite, Jashub ben Issachar, or more recently, Jashub ben Bantu. He runs the small YouTube channel known as Genesis 49ers. He's rumored to be a former member of the Camp Hebrew Israelites. His channel seems to be dedicated to topics relevant to African Americans, features debates, discussions, and occasionally slander. That's all what's featured on his channel. He is the head of a group of independent researchers called the Yap Gang, in reference to men who paternally descend from the DE haplogroup, with a focus on E1B1A. He has gone from arguing from sources pertaining to the transatlantic slave trade to shifting to a more scientific genetics-based approach. But regardless of when he made this switch, for some reason he has focused on making some very emotional posts and videos, making personal attacks on me and African people in a rather pathetic attempt to discredit and malign me. Now, I'm not 100% sure about what about me is intimidating him or getting under his skin and making him behave that way. But what I will do is examine the only legitimate argument he could have had, which in of itself is demonstrably false. So what we got to do is rewind back to November 26, 2020, and Jashub presented slides from what would have been a debate against Rob Bourne, who was an associate of mine. But Rob Bourne rejected him. He didn't want to debate him. He don't want nothing to do with him, right? So Jashub's objective with those slides was to prove that Hebrews were among the descendants of the slave trade. So on January 31st, 2021, I made a video on Garfield's Dagger Squad platform, rebutting his arguments. Admittedly, it's not my best work, you know. We've all grown since that point. But even so, Jashub was at least exposed, misquoting sources and omitting information from the sources. Now, sometime shortly after that, he began to study DNA and shifted to making genetic arguments. So in the fall of 2021, he had a bad showing against Christian apologists faithful to God, resulting in an emotional rant on his end and a response via Faithful to God and Giassi and Gozi on the Faithful to God channel. By the spring of 2022, he went on to make an attack video on me in the paternal lineage haplogroup A, which I discovered I had via 23andMe test. Haplogroup A is a rare ancient African lineage said to go back some 100,000 years or more. It's extremely rare amongst African Americans, and 1 in 6,200 23andMe customers have it. It represents the oldest human male lineage in the world. Modern-day hunter-gatherer groups like the Khoisan, the Pygmies, and Nilotic people share this line of descent, although it is found in small frequencies somewhere like in Europe and even in some Bantu groups, because some of the men were absorbed into those people who took over Africa, right? So his point of attack on me seems to be that African hunter-gatherers that had the A and even B lineages were displaced and killed and absorbed by the migrating Bantu peoples who introduced haplogroup E as the predominant lineage of sub-Saharan Africa. Now, he's probably delusional enough to think that any intellectual arguments between me and him are some kind of pseudo continuation of the tension between farming Bantus or what he deems as a descendant of primitive hunter-gatherers or whatever kind of thing that plays out in his mind. But, you know, the mention of someone's genetic origin as an attack, it doesn't warrant a serious response, especially like I never really took it more than just trolling, but it just really shows that Jashub, he isn't above petty insults when he feels threatened, you know. But if this were a debate, he would be losing. I mean, that's like really a genetic fallacy, like literally. Now let's fast forward to last weekend when I appeared on Barine TV. It was in the aftermath of the Orthodox Moor and Garfield debate. I happened to see Jashub on a panel, and after questioning him on when exactly he abandoned his Hebrew beliefs, I managed to trigger his anxiety. I got him to commit intellectual, I don't know if I could say this on YouTube, but let's say intellectual quit the game of life in front of Barine's audience. Now that was embarrassing. Let's take a listen.
Come on, Issachar, come to the microphone. You want to put your screen up? I'm gonna give you like 15 minutes to if you want to share your thoughts. I don't know if you want to share your thoughts in general on something different. You got association affiliation with Yap Gang also. Some people might be troubled because of what Garfield said.
Nigga, I am Yap. What are you talking about? I'm Yap.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go. All right. We're going to mind the language now. We're going to mind the language. I'm going to give you 15 minutes. You want to put your screen up?
I don't even support the Israelite argument no more. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even care.
What?
Oh, really?
I don't care for it. I don't even support the Israelite argument no more. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even support the Israelite argument no more. I'm going to be honest with you. And no, I don't support the Israelite argument no more. I don't support it because it's the same thing Garfield's doing. It's in the same vein.
When did you give it up?
Give up what?
You said you left that argument alone. So when did this happen?
Because just like you and Garfield, y'all make silly arguments on the internet.
I just said when, sir. I said when.
All right, I'm explaining. Now, what the hell your damn name is? I'm explaining.
You can read when.
When? Over the last year. I don't really make arguments for Israelites no more.
So why you keep my name in your mouth if the only thing we disagree about is the Hebrew thing, the lineal?
Because you have garbage methodology. Your methodology sucks. Just like the Black Hebrew Israelites methodology sucks.
It sucks.
Your methodology is the problem.
Jews into genetics. Your method, you had to give up being a Hebrew.
What are you talking about? Your methodology sucks. If you're telling somebody they can't be a part of an ancestry, 93. If you're saying somebody can't be a part of, no, bro, shut up when I'm talking, bro. It's my floor, bro. Shut the fuck up while I'm talking.
Shut up when I'm talking.
Yo, why you don't curse? Don't curse, bro. Don't curse.
Tell them to stop interrupting me, man. I fucking
love it.
If you would let me.
You's a softy. Kick him off the chat. Kick him up out of here. He's soft. He's soft.
Now, in that clip, my microphone was kind of muffled. I sounded a little low, and perhaps people couldn't clearly hear me. But I asked him when. When did he stop arguing to be a Hebrew? He said sometime last year. Then I asked him why he was continuing to personally attack me if all we disagreed about was the Hebrew Israelite thing, whether we were that or not. So if he gave it up, there would be no animosity. There would be really no problem between us. And his response was that I have bad methodology. And he conflated me and Garfield's kind of arguments together instead of dealing with me on an individual basis. He thinks I have the same kind of rationale as the camps. He think I got the same kind of rationale as an ISUPK or a regular Hebrew Israelite. And that's justification for personal attacks and ad hominems. Wow. So bad methodology warrants personal attacks on not only me, but making light of African people who you say get haplogroup A and B that actually suffer in real life because they share lineage with me. You attacking me by attacking them. Bad methodology led him to make videos describing me as a hoe or BITCHASSNIGGA. Because that's what you got on your channel right now. Bad methodology leads to that. You're somebody who would scrutinize somebody's methodology from like a scholarly perspective, but then you act unscholarly and you act uncivilized and you act like a very effeminate man just because somebody has bad methodology. I've encountered Hebrew Israelites who I perceived as having bad methodology all the time. As a matter of fact, in 2021, I was arguing with Dante Fortson and the brother Tazarah, who I know, like I argue with all the time. I can criticize their methodology, but I don't believe I got no video personally attacking or calling them epithets or calling them hoes or BITCHs and all of that. Wow. So does he even know my methodology? I mean, he should, because he claims that it's bad. I mean, you got to know it to say that it's bad, right? I'm more than certain this is not about information, and this is extremely personal on his end. But let's entertain this excuse for his feminine behavior, and we're going to dissect both his and my own methodology within the last 2 years. So, returning to his 2020 video, we see him making the case for descendants of Hebrews coming amongst the slaves in the transatlantic slave trade. So let's look at two of his sources he cites, and let's see his interpretation of the sources, and let's look at his methodology at that time period.
We getting there. I'm building up to it, man. This is the build up to answer the question. The progeny of the Jews returned to their ancestral
religion. Progeny means the children and the descendants of. The source I'm looking at is The Jews and Blacks in the Early Modern World by Jonathan Scorch. It's a very good book. I think it's going to run you about $70 on Amazon. Page number 253. As J.D. Oppenheim remarked, it was especially among the house of slaves that many Jewish traditions were known and were looked upon as master law, remain more or less in the memories of their offsprings. Now, this presentation is going to explain to you how all these Jews, all these slaves were able to retain these Jewish traditions, and their offsprings retain these Jewish traditions. Now, many will say that scoff, oh, it's because they were converts and they had Jewish slave masters. There weren't that many Jewish slave masters in the Americas. A very small percentage of Jews had slaves in America. So you're going to say all these damn slaves understood these Jewish traditions based off this small amount of Ashkenazim that came over here like in the late 1700s? Doesn't make any sense. We're going to explain to you on the source why these Jewish traditions were held near and dear to these slaves and how they retained it and how was these traditions transmitted.
Okay, so here's his slide right here, right? It says the progeny or children of Jews return, keyword return, to their ancestral religion. Don't mind what I put right here about the page numbers, because in the digital and the physical versions, they could differ. But right here, we see he quoted about the house slaves knowing Jewish tradition or master law, right? And his presentation is about Hebrews being amongst the slaves that came through the slave trade, because that was the litmus, that they come through the slave trade, right? This is J.D. Oppenheim. So we're going to go to the footnote to show you the primary source. At least in my methodology, I do show that, right? By J.D. Oppenheim, Jewish Customs Among the Suriname. Then we're going to go to Jonathan Schorsch's source that he used. And let's see what he left out. It says, as J.D. Oppenheim remarked, it was especially among the house slaves that many Jewish traditions were known and looked upon as master law. But what he didn't tell y'all right here was about the children of the Jewish planters and their female slaves or mulattoes, having been born out of wedlock after the manumission of their mothers, were instructed by their mothers of whom they were born and took the name of Portuguese Jews. This implies that only that these women slaves who worked in the house saw enough of Jewish life to want to share it or recognize the possibility of social betterment within the community that their children would gain as Jews. It says the mothers instructed these children to take on Portuguese Jewish names. And it also says the names that would claim and signify their Jewish ancestry. So they're getting it from their mothers, the black slave women. So how would this be a return to their ancestral religion? It's not ancestral because their fathers are Sephardic Jews who migrated there. They wasn't slaves. The slaves were the women who weren't slaves, were given the religion and instructed their children to have it, even gave the children names. It does not prove that, at least these sources don't prove his premise that amongst the slaves, Hebrews came, because the Sephardic Jews wasn't slaves. They converted black women and had children. The women gave it to the children. Speaking of Suriname, which is not the United States, which is not where our ancestors went, he quoted Bruce D. Haynes' book, Soul of Judaism, to talk about the patrilineal descent of Sephardic Jews. But his premise is about Jews coming amongst the slaves in the slave trade. And it's funny because the Sephardic Jews, they immigrated to the New World and took slaves. So him having this quote, he didn't even show you in the book and on the page where this exact section talks about conversion, talks about them having slaves who they had children with. Look at right here. Frequently, Jewish men converted female African slaves so they can marry them as Jews. In some cases, slaves were emancipated following their conversion to Judaism. We go down the way he quoted, right there where it says Jews subscribe to ancient practice of patrilineal descent. It's right there, right above it, right to the side. Immediately preceding this stuff, it talks about the conversion, and he was just criticizing that and talking about how it wasn't a lot of Jewish slave masters and all that stuff. Is that proper methodology? I know this is the past. I know it is. But I'm just showing at a time period when my methodology was largely the same as it was today. He had a whole different methodology that was flawed. He was omitting things. He was leaving things out. Stuff doesn't even support his argument.
Is effacing history in favor of hyphenated whiteness. The source I'm about to go into is The Jews and Blacks in Early Modern World by Jonathan Scorch, page number 286. It says the history of the colored Jews born of transracial racial sex and their congregation underwent almost complete erasure from the authors. I want you to understand that. Complete erasure from the authors. So that means people purposely try to remove this history, erase this history, or efface this history, snip it out of the historical records because they didn't want this to be seen. This is just facts. And you got a lot of you Afrocentrics that's banking on that because you want to push this black ideology, this African-only ideology that you're African and that's it, which is all pseudonyms, right? It's not a true identity that was held by the ancestors, right? So you look for this absence of evidence, so to speak, in favor of your erroneous arguments. When we can clearly see Jonathan Scorch is telling you that this history almost got completely wiped out. The question is why? Let's move on.
So here's another one of his sources. It says the history of colored Jews born of transracial sex and their congregation underwent almost complete erasure from the authors. This is Jonathan Scorch, and we go to the book. He left this out: Sephardic whiteness in Suriname. The history of colored Jews born of Sephardic transracial sex and their congregation underwent almost complete erasure from the authors. Jewish mulattoes receiving barely a mention in passing. So these are the children.
Let me stop for a second and say that Genesis 49ers was a horrible researcher. And I don't care if you make a video about me. This is Garfield talking. I want to say that that's not even scholarship. That's just being purely dishonest. And this is why I have a debate today with my brother, Yawasap. And to be honest, he's probably one of the few people who I genuinely would say, hey, I don't think he's a dishonest scholar. He might be misinformed, but I don't think he's dishonest. What this guy is doing is pure dishonesty right here. Why would you leave this part out? And you know, it's funny. I had the opportunity for Dr. Jonathan Scorch to address this particular thing, and I actually pulled back from doing it for the sake I didn't want him to look bad. But you going at 93 for what? For methodology? Come on, bro. This is horrible. And we got over 50 to 60 slides of you doing misinformation and lying on sources. Now you want to come for 93. Now bear in mind, I'm proud of Genesis 49 though. He was a camp doctrine guy. I think he was a part of IUIC or GMS or one of these camps. He left the camp, became his own independent researcher. He has now developed a scientific literacy, and now he has even left the whole Hebrew Israelite doctrine. If that's the case, I'm proud of him. He has grown. So we have done our jobs. I think we beating him up so much, whether it's Raw Bond, myself, forced him to go back and research, and he finally realized that what he believed this whole time was garbage.
Of black women who were not Jews, who were given that Jewish slave masters, and their children are mulattoes, who they passed down the Jewishness to. This is in Suriname, by the way, so it's not even African-American history. So I don't see how his methodology at this time period isn't flawed, but mine's got to be flawed, right? And even when he upgrades his methodology, we see him doing the same stuff. Now we see neither of these sources proves his point about Jewish descendants via slavery. Rather, it just shows migrating Jews that made progeny with black African slaves. And that's not to say all of his points were wrong or that he didn't provide examples that could be sound, but multiple times he omits parts of the sources and he doesn't present the proper context. which is bad scholarship. I don't want to go through every slide and everything he said because I did that in the video 2 years ago. Plus, now he has changed his stance on that. But the point was to show that in the past, he had bad methodology.
You have garbage methodology. Your methodology sucks. Just like the Black Hebrew Israelites methodology sucks. You have garbage methodology.
Liar! Liar! Now, this is what he says about me, but let's look at my quote unquote methodology. Let's look at my reason and how I argue as far as lineage and phenotype and morphology and all of that. Let's look, and this is 2 years ago. Let's see if this is something that he would disagree with right now. So right here, we got color, dark skin, swarthy, or Black Hebrews in history. Now, having dark skin or black skin doesn't make you the ancestors of African Americans or the African diaspora. If ancient Hebrews were in fact the people of color, it makes them no more our ancestors than the Dravidians, Aboriginal Australians, Arabs, the Roma people, aka Gypsies, Southeast Asians, Indigenous Americans, or Negritos. That tracing lineage through your fathers, the Y DNA of Hebrews, Sephardim, Jews in particular should be EM2, E1B1A, or its various subclades, the same as West, South, Central African tribes taken to America as slaves. So if these Jews are dark, it don't automatically mean they're your people if they're described as dark. I don't understand where that logic leads, especially when you know anything about anthropology. There's people all over the world of color. The Jews could have color, and that don't automatically mean they're your ancestors. Come on, man. Don't be that desperate. Now, there we go. There you go right there. I still have this stance, and I maintain it like today. Now, unlike Jashub, I'm not forced to change my methodology or worldview by that much since that time frame. Yes, I've argued color just for the sake of arguing it with people or whatever like that, but truly, the bit of genetics, the bit of knowledge I knew about lineage at the time, I knew just being black doesn't make you anything. So I don't argue like the camps. I wasn't arguing like the camps back then, so he's wrong. He wasn't paying attention. So moving ahead to the fall of 2021, Jashub became a dilettante in genetics. That dilettante being a word he projected upon his own opponents, despite being a living embodiment of it. Like, Faithful to God would expose Jashub's habit of omitting information in context regarding information and sources and, the scientific paper here in this clip. Let's take a listen.
And what I'm going to do very quickly before we get into the actual topic, I got one more thing to play. This was actually from Yashub's show. I believe this was from the 29th. And this was a clip in which he attempted to cast aspersions on J1. So he read an article, although he never showed it on his screen. And it was an article entitled Origin and Diffusion of Human Y Chromosome Haplogroup J1-M267. So I'm going to go ahead and play the clip. I'm going to show it on my screen, and you guys are going to see something in a moment.
So we're going to read the origin and diffusion of J1M267, which is where they say the Cohen monohaplotype comes from. All right, so in this paper, it states, here we study past human male demography in West Asia with 172 high coverage whole Y chromosome sequences and 889 genotype samples of haplogroup J1M267. We show that the haplogroup evolved 20,000 years ago somewhere in northwestern Iran, the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, and northern Mesopotamia. This is not the Levant. The major branch, here it goes, J1A1A1, P58 evolved during the early Holocene 9,500 years ago somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula, southern Mesopotamia. Haplogroup J1M267 expanded during the Chalcolithic, the Bronze Age, and Iron Age. So prior to this, you don't have this haplogroup here. 9,500 years ago somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula, southern Mesopotamia. Haplogroup J1M267 expanded during the
So I want you guys to catch that. Did you notice that he was reading the paper? But when he got to the portion that says, 9,500 years ago, somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula, and then he skipped over the part where it says the Levant, and then went right to and southern Mesopotamia. So he ignored the part that said the Levant, and just like read, like it's impossible to read that paper and not see that part. And I'm going to show you guys, you know, because this is on my screen. This right-hand side, this doesn't actually appear in his live stream. This was added into the video so everyone could see the actual paper. He never actually showed the paper in his live stream. The left-hand side is what was in his live stream, so he doesn't actually show this paper. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So it's interesting that he did that. So here's the relevant paper, which I'm about to show. And I'm going to show you guys that it is impossible to read that paper. Even though I had it on the screen, it was on the right-hand side, but some might accuse me of photoshopping or whatever the case is. But it is impossible to actually read that paper the way that he did and to miss the relevant portion. Now, if I could find the, let me actually find that. Here we go. Hold on one second. Yeah, here we go. This was the relevant portion in the paper. You guys can see that, right? Actually, you know what? Let me do something real quick. Let me make this text a little larger. And then you guys will be able to, it is virtually impossible to read that and miss that portion. Just skip over that portion.
Here's a clip from the comments section mentioning my video on him. Thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, something interesting is the live chat of my 2021 video. We see Sabio, he's a former Dagger Squad member. He mentioned that he sent the video to Jashub. And Jashub commented on the video some years later, you know, that it was his first time watching the video or whatever. But if he did watch it early this year or whatever, whenever you watched it, like, how did he miss me explaining my views on lineage being more important than morphology? How could he attack my methodology when even he can agree with what I'm saying here in this old video while I was critiquing him? Also, take notice to the fact that he's saying, I can make videos, but I won't debate. But if he was telling the truth in the recent video, when he said, oh, I gave up the Hebrew argument sometime last year, then there wouldn't be anything for me and him to debate. That's the only thing me and him disagreed on or had a real debate upon. So it seems like he just want to debate just for the sake of debating, just because he don't like me, just because he wants to be a contrarian. He wants to be antagonistic. He doesn't even have a legit beef, and he's talking about debates, but he's given up the Hebrew argument. And that's the only thing I really disagree with him and the Hebrews on. It wasn't about methodology. He didn't voice methodology here. I got such a bad methodology that in this video, while I showed you my views, my methodology as far as lineage, he went through the DNA paradigm, left the Hebrew DNA paradigm, only to agree with what I was saying in that video. So it's not adding up. It's not legit. This guy just has a personal issue with me, yo. So sometime this year, Abu Kamar, he put a video out on E1B1A in the Levant. And on the video, I put a comment where I said that I believe at some time or in the future they could find E1B1A in Israel, just like they found it anywhere else, like they found it in Spain or like they found it all over the world. It would just prove that people with that lineage travel wherever they wanted to. It doesn't specifically mean that they were the Israelites. It could be stragglers. It could be just migrants, right? So I posted that, and I also said I believe that maybe they'll find a sample that's ancient in West Africa, right? Prior to the Israelite period. I put biblical Israelite period, whatever. You know, the guy, Jashub, he got real excited at the prospect of having a discussion with me because he came specifically to my comment. He even wanted to come on my channel and have a discussion about it, you know, and I ain't really care. It didn't matter to me. Just to return to my comments real quick, or these comments in particular on Abu's video, if he would have just read these comments, he would see the nuance that I'm trying to put forth in the conversation. You have people that won't even admit that E1B1A could, would, or ever will be found in the Levant. And I'm saying this, like somebody with a poor methodology wouldn't even be speaking in this matter, right? So if you read that, I'm pretty sure he could agree with this. You look at his comment right here. I'm gonna read his comment. I might even read it in his voice because he got a Jim Henson-esque kind of voice. He got kind of a very interesting character type of voice. Let me see. Biblical Iron Age? What's that? Secondly, all of the evidence points to an external origin of modern Western Africans. DNA is integral, but coupled with other arguments, the veracity at this point is unassailable. Well, I'm not arguing about the origin of E1B1A. It could start in Arabia. It could start in Northeast Africa. That's not the point. I'm talking about whether E1B1A is the lineage of Hebrew Israelites. That's always been my argument. E can develop wherever it developed. That's a beautiful thing. I don't have any hatred or malice towards E carriers. That's ridiculous. That's what y'all do. I don't do that. But I'm not even arguing that. It seems like he's just trying to, if he can't be an Israelite, then he gonna throw the E and develop somewhere else argument towards me, which I don't care. If it's true, I will acknowledge that. Look at this comment right here. Well, I had to speak to him about the Iron Age. I said the argument isn't about if E developed outside of Africa, rather if carriers of E3A here in the Americas are the descendants of Israelite. Such has not been proven, but I can appreciate anyone's efforts, permitted they argue in good faith. Does this sound like somebody with a terrible, horrible methodology the way I'm speaking to him? It's ridiculous. Look at what I said here. If it has been proven and demonstrated by credited geneticists that African Americans are the literal Israelites, I have no objection. Does that sound like somebody with a poor methodology? I said, just cite the paper and the geneticists that have proven that. We can't argue facts. A fact is a fact. I have no argument if it's proven. If there's people who look at the lineage and look at the line of the remains there and say that. I said a discussion, speculating or postulating is just for fun. But we all have done that for years now. I appreciate the evolution in your approach to the subject matter. Keep growing. Does that sound like somebody with a poor methodology? Even if I disagree with him, this guy's been personally attacking and disrespecting me. But am I displaying poor methodology by appealing to the actual science and evidence instead of me just making stuff up? He said, I argue like the camps. That's not how the camps argue. That's not how they reason.
You have garbage methodology. Your methodology sucks, just like the Black Hebrew Israelites methodology sucks.
Now let's just finish this this whole charge of my methodology being bad. That means there's open season for you to personally attack and cuss and disrespect me and act like a hooligan, like a man child, like a feminine girl, So the most recent display of my methodology was last week in a discussion on Bareen's channel with the Hebrew Israelite fella Tazarah Ban Yehuda. It was a competitive yet good-natured discussion where I made clear my views, and they're pretty much consistent with what I said 2 years ago in my response video to Jashub on the slave trade. Right. So let's listen to that clip.
Sexual arguments are gonna be based on interpretation, and it's gonna lead to eisegesis and exegesis. I don't think that's a good method either. And then it's gonna come down to who interpretation is better, because the Christian apologists for years they've been given contrary examples how it's not exactly how Hebrew Israelites interpret it, about the hair color, about Christ and all of that stuff. And see, that stuff ad nauseum just leads me to say, And plus, I can't take the scriptural interpretations of Deuteronomy 28, put it in a laboratory and get results. You're gonna get false positives. I would say you have an aversion to DNA. I've learned about DNA. People don't like DNA. But I would say we're talking about a lineal claim, a lineage.
Right.
It produces less false positives than looking at somebody's hair, nose, and skin color, and it produces less false positives than my interpretation of a scripture, because so many other people got interpretations of scripture.
Right.
So we see me trying to reason with Tazarah and get away from morphological arguments, even scriptural interpretation, in order to prove who is who, and steer him towards a science like DNA, which is what obviously Jashub agreed with at a time. And through that means, he came to the conclusion that he wasn't an Israelite, and that argument wasn't really sufficient. That methodology wasn't sufficient. See, he's the one going through all these different epochs in his worldview and all of this stuff, only to just come disagree with me. I didn't have to use the genetics. I just was saying that African Americans wasn't Israelites, and he had to go learn genetics to find out something that I was saying without having to learn genetics to the degree he probably had, because I already knew. So here's Orthodox Moore. He's a fellow member of Jashub's Yap Gang Collective. He recently reshared the video of my conversation with Tazarah, and I'm certain he disagrees with me on at least some things, either in that conversation or just overall, but none of his feedback that he gave me after that conversation when I talked to him in Ivri, none of it included me having a horrible methodology. In fact, if you've seen the title of his recording of that discussion, it indicates that he may have disagreed more with Tazarah than he did with me. And I'm sure somewhere along the line we disagree on some things, but neither him or Ivri made it a point to say you have horrible methodology. But even if they did feel that way, I've seen them encounter people who actually have bad methodology. I'm not going to say their names, but they've encountered people from the Hebrew and the Christian apologists and the non-believing sector, and they've displayed bad methodology going up against Moore and Ivri. I've never seen Ivri or Moore, not to my knowledge, make videos personally attacking any of those people, calling them a hoe or bitch or all of this kind of stuff Jashub is doing. And if you think about it, when Jashub came on, he actually said me and Garfield kind of have the same kind of issues like the camps.
Because just like you and Garfield, y'all make silly arguments. Because just like you and Garfield, y'all make silly arguments. Because just like you and Garfield, y'all make silly arguments.
So if that was true, Moore encountered Garfield, and if Moore felt the same way about Garfield's methodology being poor, I wonder why in their debate I didn't see Moore calling Garfield out of his name, calling him a B, calling him a hoe, making all types of slanderous videos about him. Instead of what I have seen Moore do is go at Garfield's scholarship and actually go at his methodology, actually go at his sources and his arguments. That's what Orthodox Moore would do. I believe that's what Ivri would do too. Seems like the other members of YAP are far more sophisticated, far more emotionally mature in how they go about dealing with poor arguments than the person who seems to be the head of that collective. What a shame. So to sum it all up, Jashubis went from being a Hebrew who didn't even believe in DNA to displaying poor methodology when presenting sources at the end of 2020 to a year later being equally deceptive after learning about DNA. And now he exhibits an inability to do actual research on the people he chooses to criticize. He even asked Tazarah, the individual who I had a discussion with on Bareen's channel, to come on his show and talk about the dialogue that me and him had. Now, mind you, he doesn't even like Tazarah. He doesn't agree with Tazarah. Tazarah argues closer to the camps than I do. But he would have this guy come on, a guy he don't even agree with, to have a discussion on what he talked about with me. He disliked me so much he would do that. And if I could just make a silly anime analogy, Jashub is just like Dragon Ball Z Vegeta levels of arrogant. Like when he fought Android 18, he thought because he was Super Saiyan, he was going to beat everybody up. That's kind of like when he learned genetics, he was going to beat everybody up. And he said in the comment section, he surpassed us all. Now that he's, I guess what he's dealing with genetics. So it's like he's Super Saiyan, and the truth is like Android 18 kicking his behind, saying to him, how sad to work so hard for so little. That's actually perfect. So no, his issue with me is just personal attacks. It's not about my methodology. He has nothing to stand on other than personal attacks. So here he is on Facebook. This was sent to me. He's saying, tell 93, my ancestors clapped them ends and took they bees, as in they women. Saying his ancestors killed hunter-gatherer men and took hunter-gatherer women. Here you go, pal. Have at it. So he says people like me are irrelevant because my paternal lineage is less than 4% of African American populations. Well, according to him, we must be relevant in his mind for him to put the haplogroup of A on the biblical Adam.
Yeah. So Noah would, his first initial 3 sons would have the same haplogroup as him.
Oh,
but I believe that Noah would have been what we call Y chromosomal Adam.
Then he put on his shout out to Yap, we Merc hunter-gatherers. Sir, you just did a video appreciating haplogroup R1b. That is the lineage of our oppressors, our collective oppressors, European white people who slave traded Bantus, Icarian people, and some Acarian people in America. You know what? I'm going to have to go to Hashar for this one.
This is a goddamn coon.
Now, Jashub, I believe his haplogroup is EU290. I believe that began in the Congo. Listen to this conversation him and Ngozi had when Ngozi had made him admit his haplogroup is African.
And your E, you take it in the Congo. Listen to Africa. So you're not an Israelite. So you're not an Hebrew Israelite. Where did your E? Okay, let me ask you, Yashu, did your E1B1? Did your E1B1 that mutated in the Levant? Did your E1B1 that mutated in the Levant?
No, it did not.
E1B1 that mutated in the Levant? So you're not Israelite. So you're not Israelite. So you're not Israelite.
That's fine. But that doesn't change the fact that Martin Luther King.
So everybody heard him. Everybody heard him.
So he's got a haplogroup said to have originated in the Congo, but he's praising R1b, the haplogroup shared by the people who went into the Congo and oppressed those people. Leopold II being one of them. And it just so happens that his DNA is here for people to observe. I wonder what his haplogroup is. Man, you cannot make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. This guy just got personal issues, man. I can't help him. All I can do is recommend him go somewhere quiet alone, let it out, and just cry, Jashu. Just cry. And I want to end this video by showing what the Yap is purported to believe at this point and get them in proper context and not misrepresent them and let them show what they believe regarding the Israelite argument. Nobody should lump them in as Hebrew Israelites or Hebrew Israelite apologists. They're independent researchers. They're interested in history, no different than me, no different than the Dagger Squad, no different than the Christian apologists. Do not lump them in. I think it's important not to misrepresent people. So I'm showing this to let them speak for themselves. As for Jashub, he's absolutely pathetic and so beneath me. He's really my grandchild. But now you got me talking junk. I really thought somebody who would call himself the scholastic bully would go about it scholastically or would have some actual argument behind claiming my methodology was bad, but that's demonstrably false. He argues like a white supremacist, actually. And I could actually go back and forth with him and talk about quote unquote primitive or savage or nasty habits of people with haplogroup E. That's just so time exhausting and wasting. I know he's gonna make videos going back and forth and all that. I really don't care. I mean, he's my grandchild at the end of the day. So I want to shout out everybody who watched this video. Peace and love. Thanks for watching. I'm out.
Wow. Oh man, yo, he destroyed him in that first video. But wait, it gets worse. in my Onyx voice. But wait, it gets worse. '93, haplogroup 8. Your daddy.
Yo, peace and love. For anybody that watched my last video.
Oh, hold on. No wonder Yashub is mad. Oh man. Look at that picture that he made of Yashub. Oh man, I'm done. 93. I don't know, man. I might have to suspend you from Dagger Squad for that picture, man. Oh man, you put him in a skirt, bro. Oh man. So he acting like a pit bull with a skirt. So he's Eve from Philly now. Oh man.
Yo, y'all should already know who this guy is.
This is a goddamn coon.
Now that's one way to describe him, but his actual name is Jashub, the guy who runs the Genesis 49ers channel. I don't know why he still calls it that, because he found out that he's not a Hebrew Israelite or any kind of Jew or anything based on genetics. But he made another video. Yeah, as usual, it's just a poor response on his behalf, where he just pretty much let it be known he has absolutely nothing scholarly to give me, just personal attacks, insults. So I just figured I'd make one last video to just poke fun at him a little bit, laugh at him, and then I just leave him alone. But I thought this would be the perfect example to show people what happens when your opponent gets crushed, when they lose and they have no arguments besides ad hominem attacks and personal attacks. So I'm just going to look at a few of the things he said in this video. We'll just pick it apart and we'll just put him and his arguments and everything to bed.
About 93's response. I didn't even know he made a response. But apparently he made a response that's a non-response to my video about his weak-ass ancestry. And he doesn't even address his ancestry at all. It's like, yo, the video was about his weak-ass ancestry, man. Why you didn't address haplogroup A, man? I was waiting on that.
Why didn't he address haplogroup A? I was waiting on that.
Lil' bro, you've been trying to move the goalposts forever. The original contention I had with you was the identity claims you was making the end of 2020, 2021. And then the genetic claims you tried to make up until now, where you were stripped of that Hebrew identity. I guess you read something or somebody told you, or you found out. Now you agree with us. You call yourself a scholastic bully. We know you're not a bully. We know you're not built like that. I seen the pictures, nigga. You actually built like Mick Foley. But, man, I thought you was a little bit scholastic. I got to actually teach you that you're actually committing a logical fallacy. That's a genetic fallacy that you're doing. Instead of dealing with what you can't deal with what I used to disagree with you on, because we agree. We ain't Hebrew. And as far as this whole obsession you got with haplogroup A or haplogroups warring, haplogroup E and A fighting in Africa, hunter-gatherers, farmers or whatever, I guess you are slow and you don't pay attention. You didn't watch my last video and pay attention, because I made it abundantly clear that I don't care about that. I don't care about hunter-gatherers getting assimilated by farmers in Africa. Same thing happened in Europe. That's irrelevant. It's got nothing to do with what's happening right here in this conversation with me whooping on you, with me showing you how much of a pseudo you are and how much of a clown you are. You have no arguments, just ad hominem, sir. So, no, we can just shut that down right there. I wouldn't debate about haplogroups, bro. People don't choose their haplogroups. But you did make a choice to try to lie and say you were Hebrew. You found out you wasn't. It is what it is, bro.
He basically was agitated and upset, and, emotional behind the fact that I said that his methodology was garbage. And I do believe his methodology is garbage. And the reason why, because I've heard him say things that, could only lead me to that conclusion.
Well, he might have said, well, I really feel that his methodology is...
Notice how he can't prove anything, just nervous talk. Just got moon pat face, big goofy nigga babble coming off his microphone. Now he's saying he believes. First he was saying definitively, like, my methodology is bad. I've encountered so many pseudo people. I don't act like a baboon just because somebody's methodology is bad. You're mad because you're not a Hebrew, bro. Keep it real. Since he was forced to give up the whole Hebrew thing, the only actual argument me and him could have really had would have been about methodology. And we see him fumbling right here. He has so many chances to prove it. He can't prove it. That's because there is no problem with my methodology. That's an excuse. He's just a hater.
Now he's like, oh, he didn't explain why. Bro, I got kicked off the damn show, dude. I got kicked off the ring show. How the fuck I'm going to explain some shit and I got kicked off? You wouldn't even let me talk.
The big bad hunter-gatherer brother came and kicked my ass on the Christian platform. He got me kicked off. That's the reason I can't explain myself. No, you got yourself kicked off being emotional. How you getting over-talked about somebody with haplogroup A? That's going by your logic. How you getting bullied by somebody that got haplogroup A, a hunter-gatherer, as you say, huh? Crying. And then I don't explain why on your channel, instead of making videos calling me names, you didn't just do a video exposing my methodology to justify yourself. I mean, you still can't justify your behavior. Look at all the pseudos we've encountered. I don't have to talk about him the way he's talking about me. I think I really hurt this guy's feelings. And at this point, I think I might want to keep hurting him. So this next portion of the video, he pretty much admits he doesn't have anything scholastic or anything really about methodology. He pretty much says he's a bigot. That's his issue.
Like, you a bigot? I'm like, damn, you're right, I am a bigot. I had to look at the definition of a bigot. He's like, you know what? Yashu is a bigot, man. He called me Yashu being bigot. I never really sat down and looked at the word bigot. Oh shit, I am. Look at what bigot is right here. A person who is ostensibly or unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction, especially one who is prejudiced against prejudiced against or antagonistic toward a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. He's like, I think the problem he has with me is personal. Duh, nigga, it's been personal. What are you talking about? I'm a bigot. What's wrong with you, nigga?
So we just watched this idiot proudly call himself a bigot. Two of the words used to describe a bigot is obstinately and unreasonably. Obstinate means somebody who is stubborn, and of course we know what unreasonably means. So this idiot wasn't even smart enough to catch that. Yeah, he is a bigot, a dumb one too. All right, so next we're going to hear this clown say he doesn't like me personally and he wishes bad stuff happening to me and my family.
Nigga Cesara was on her yesterday talking about they steal my brother. None of them niggas my brothers. I don't fuck with none of them niggas, bro. I hope it rain on them niggas, bro. I don't like you niggas. I don't like you, 93. I wish nothing but bad shit on you and your family, bro. Nah, I ain't gonna go that low. I ain't gonna say on you, nigga, because I don't know your family. Fuck that. I ain't gonna go that low. I'm Lucifer, but I ain't that Lucifer. You know what I'm saying? On you, nigga.
Nah, don't try to run away and backpedal now. So this is how you know when you have somebody defeated, when they start talking crazy like this. This dude is so upset about having to relinquish a fake Hebrew identity that was never his. He never was gonna be. He's mad enough that now he want to wish bad things on me and my family. Then he want to pump fake and take it back. No. Don't do all that. Keep embarrassing yourself. Keep playing yourself. Because at the end of the day, he had to agree with the people that he hates so much. He had to give it up. I gave up nothing. He gave up everything.
Even in your response video, your methodology was garbage. You said these people live in South America. They live in Suriname. They not even African Americans. Oh, God damn, I didn't know African Americans only existed in North America. I did not know that. That's the dumb shit I be talking about. This is the retarded shit I be talking about, y'all be saying. And y'all never own up to the dumb shit.
Now, this dusty nigga just hooting and hollering now, making up anything now. So my methodology is bad because it is a known fact that African Americans and Surinamese, or however you say the African people who went to Suriname, are not the same people. He's got to know that I'm talking about the ethnic group African Americans, right? He can't be that stupid. Or is he trying to run away and jump behind a broad definition of African American? Any African that was brought to the Americas automatically is an African American. That's stupid. The relevant reason that I even mention that is because these aren't our people. Those were black women mixing with Sephardic Jews. Mind you, his premise in that presentation was to prove Jews taken as slaves in the transatlantic slave trade, and he misrepresented a source, or he didn't show the full context of a source that actually ended up saying not only did Sephardic Jews come and convert slaves, black women, but they had children with them, and the females passed on the practices of Judaism to the children. But here's the clip. Speaking of Suriname, which is not the United States, which is not where our ancestors went, he quoted Bruce D. Haynes' book, Soul of Judaism, to talk about the patrilineal descent of Sephardic Jews, but his premise is about Jews coming amongst the slaves in the slave trade. And it's funny because the Sephardic Jews, they immigrated to the New World and took slaves. So him having this quote, he didn't even show you in the book and on the page where this exact section talks about conversion, talks about them having slaves who they had children with. Look at right here. Frequently, Jewish men converted female African slaves so they can marry them as Jews. In some cases, slaves were emancipated following their conversion to Judaism. We go down the way he quoted, right there where it says Jews subscribe to ancient practice of patrilineal descent. It's right there, right above it, right to the side. Immediately preceding this stuff, it talks about the conversion, and he was just criticizing that and talking about how it wasn't a lot of Jewish slave masters and all that stuff. Is that proper methodology? So we see in consecutive videos he getting exposed. I mean, hell, this is from 2 years ago, me showing his pseudo scholarship, his bad methodology. But at this point, I really don't care what he thinks about my methodology. I mean, why would I let somebody that's pseudo, that go through various different world views and have to get stripped of them? Why would I let this person criticize my methodology? That was just the smoke screen for his little punk temper tantrum attacks. You know what I'm saying? So I really don't care what you think about me. I really don't care if you don't like me. I don't care about you either, fam. But I'm just doing this video to just punch you in the face a little bit, make fun of you, make one last video, you know. Little victory lap.
This nigga hit me in a little side chat. I'm not a forger. I go to the grocery store. Niggas really be getting emotional behind my videos, bro.
This goofy nigga is so dumb. He don't even know when I'm trolling him. He's bringing up something I joked about in the chat or something from last year about a joke that they actually made about hunter-gatherers or anybody with haplogroup A or something like that. Not don't go to the store because you're a hunter-gatherer. Because in this dude's stupid infantile mind, he thinks that your haplogroup determines your characteristics. So if you are somebody who is haplogroup A or B, then you can't go to the grocery store. And I guess by his dumb logic, somebody with E1B1A should be circumcising their daughters because that's what they historically did. They should be a marginalized group, constantly being imprisoned and killed by white people and police. Based on his logic, they should have a high rate of AIDS, HIV, because he believes any negative thing associated with your haplogroup, you have to, I don't know, play out or something like that. This guy's so dumb. So yes, I did make that joke. You're so dumb, you don't even know when I'm trolling you, goofy. Now this last clip right here sounds like he making some kind of veiled threat. I don't know if he means that as a threat to me, but I'm going to jump right in front of it and confront it as if he is talking to me. So those with sensitive ears, I'm giving y'all a warning, heads up, or y'all can end the video right here.
Fucked up, try that with me, nigga. I'm going to slap you with the cold side of the biscuit, nigga. That's on my dad's grave, nigga. Nigga, you fuck around and get smacked with the cold side of the biscuit, nigga. Told everything I love, bro. That's it, man. Ain't nothing else to talk about.
I'm gonna slap you with the cold side of a biscuit, nigga. I'm gonna slap you with the cold side of a biscuit. I put that on my dead dad's rotten corpse. Man, if you don't get your soft ass out of here, sit your ass down before you get your ears stumped together, fool. Making threats on the internet, talking tough. Ain't nobody buying no tough guy threats from you, nigga. You shaped like the Michelin Man. And it's a shame I got to resort to the same kind of ad hominem attacks, but you leave me no choice. I mean, ain't no scholarship or no information. So to any of my listeners with sensitive ears, I'm sorry, but Jashub is a pussy. And I just got to say that. I could never be intimidated by a nigga shaped like a bag of laundry. You see this dude? This dude is shaped like Roseanne, talking about he gonna slap somebody. Stop putting stuff on your dead father. I'm sure he'd be ashamed of his son faking like he an internet thug. I ain't trying to be friends with none of y'all goofies. None of y'all cowards is worth my time. I'm just making this video to show what happens when you get your worldview snatched from you. You can expect ad hominem attacks, insults, trying to change the topic, change it about something personal, going off topic, irrelevant stuff. This is what happened. This is what you expect when you go up against a lot of these cult abused niggas. So for everybody watching, I want to thank y'all for y'all time. Peace and love. And I'm out.
It's a damn shame. I blame Raw Bond though. I'm gonna tell y'all I blame Raw Bond. You know why? Because Raw Bond was the first one to beat his ass. No, actually it was me that beat him up first. What's up, Raw Bond? How you doing, bro?
I'm an African spiritualist. You need to come back into your African culture, brother. Accept Obeah. You need to play with the cats. You need to sacrifice cats to Nani. Queen Nani.
Oh man.
Who was he talking to? I don't even remember that voice.
That was Joshua talking. He was talking about 93.
Oh, Joshua, crazy ass.
Yeah, recently. That's recently. You know he let the Hebrews like that, right?
Hey man, anybody who studies science and history eventually gonna leave that shit. You can't be studying history unless you looking at it from a historical point and the real history of how it came about and what it did, and you just like it. That's cool. But you will stop saying you are the 12 tribes. You will say that, yo, this is just a faith that I have. You will say I only like the commandments. You will not become the fictional characters in the book.
Yeah. Hey, Yawasap, why don't you jump, bro? We got the debate tonight.
He's bad for promotion, bro. He don't never get on no lives. Like, damn, son. Like, you're bad promotion, Yawasap. You're just bad for promotion. You're just bad, man. Damn, son. And don't tell me you doing something because you ain't doing nothing, bro. Unless you watching a kid or something, bro. You ain't doing nothing, bro. You never come on live, bro. How y'all doing out there, man? What's been going on in the universe of the conscious world? You heard?
Oh, you last night doing your rounds.
Huh?
I was about to jump on last night on Unk, and I saw you. I'm like, oh, man.
Nah, I jumped on there earlier. I mean, a little late. And my phone kept ringing, so I kept getting cut off of that shit. But Unk wanted to, he wanted to talk about Q Butter. I'm like, I don't want to talk about that shit, nigga. It's good being in the peanut gallery, bro. The same thing we just heard right now.
Hey, my favorite fan, head ass. What's good, Doc?
Oh shit, he's here. Everybody, I need you to get off motherfucking silence. Look, he's about to run. Look, you see how fast this is? He runs. What's up, man? Welcome, man.
What's good, beloved? I only got like 10 minutes. I am with the kids and all that, man.
Yeah. How you doing, bro? You good?
I'm good, beloved. You know what it is. What up,
when
Garfield?
people say beloved, they suspect. So we gotta watch out. Garfield suspect with that
shit too. Nobody says it. I say it. What are you saying? Nation of Islam say it. What are you saying?
Nah, I only heard that shit from Loaded Lux first, and then I heard you say it. And then when they say, "What's up, King? How you doing, Peace, King?" Watch out. Listen, y'all in the audience, but somebody, "Hey, King, how you doing?" Watch out for them. So you ready for tonight?
You crazy, man. You crazy. Yeah, of course, man.
What's the debate topic, Yawasap?
Is there a Israelite presence in pre-Columbian America?
Ooh. Do you feel like you're gonna show and prove without a shadow of a doubt that whatever the indigenous people were encountered by the Hebrews, pre-Columbian times?
Yes.
Woo! You gonna come with them primary, son? You gonna show the Mayans and shit writing about them niggas?
Yes.
Woo! Yo, everybody tune into the debate. Tune into the debate tonight. You about to hear something you ain't never heard in your life. That man's gonna pull up the indigenous writings from the indigenous people to show that they came in contact with the Hebrews. I'm tuning in for this shit. I need to see this. This is gonna be awesome.
Yo, Rabon, I'm gonna send you a shirt. Yawasap #1 fan, all right?
#1 fan. Man, I've been trying to put physical hands on your intellectual hands on you for a minute, man. I just can't get you, man. You don't never come out and play, man.
Nah, we've definitely had some good talks, bro. But even
Yeah,
though,
we had good talks, but it's just in the clubhouse, son. You don't never want to come out and play, bro.
hey man, like I told Garfield, all y'all gotta do is let me know, bro. Cause sometimes brothers already hit me up for something else. You know what I'm saying? I do a lot, brother. You know what I'm saying? So all you gotta do is let me know ahead of time, and I'll make room.
All right. So yo, I don't know this, so break it down for the people. Do you have your own camp, or you are part of a camp? Who are you? Let the people know who are you.
I'm a captain in the school of Rumgadar Gabarium, meaning high exalted warriors in the Hebrew. That's my school. We was established in 1994, so we go back.
94. Ranga, say it again.
Rumgadar Gabarium.
Yo, I can't pronounce that, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
You can't pronounce a lot of stuff, brother, but
Yeah,
I give you grace, man.
I know. I can't pronounce that. I ain't never heard that before. So where was this established at? What city?
Flatbush, Brooklyn.
Flatbush, Brooklyn. And when did you come into the truth?
Fully in 2012.
So you a baby Hebrew, and you trying to talk to me? The time that your school was established in 95 is when I got this. So you want to be for me? Come on, man. No, I'm just fucking with you.
I know you are. You know I don't. Come on, man.
But that's
yeah,
dope though. So
you definitely pseudo with hell with some shit. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. At that Black American history, that's all I talk about. Ain't nobody proved me wrong yet since I've been on this internet. Not once. Nobody. No one. Because people don't talk about it. They want to talk about Canaanites. They want to talk about the Egyptians. They want to talk about that. The moment I start talking about what black people wrote for themselves, niggas start running.
Nah, I've actually heard you actually demolish some people that tried to come against just what the Hebrew Israelites movement did for the community. And you've
That's what I
actually,
like.
Yeah, you've
ahead,
actually taught me stuff on that. That's all I wanted to say.
That's what I like that
I
stuff.
keep it a
But
stack, nigga.
it took me a while to get to that point, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. So me and Garfield, I was on some shit when I made burn the Bible, kill all them niggas. I was on some shit until I started learning more. And then kept beating this shit in my like, nope, can't look at it like this. You have to reset your brain and look at why people made these organizations. And when I did that, I was like, oh shit. They built shit for the black community and nobody knows, which is crazy. Like, it's crazy, bro. But that's what's up. So what made you in 2012 want to come into that fold?
Well, I've always been an advocate reader, ever since I was young. I grew up in Brooklyn. I'm from Bushwick, Brooklyn. So that's always been my thing, was reading. And I've always come across certain things that made me scratch my head, especially going into my own culture, right? Some of it you're actually going to hear tonight. So I'm not going to say too much. But then, I went through the walk with, of course, being in New York City, being in Brooklyn, fucking with the 5%ers, fucking with the Nation of Islam, and getting different theological views, historical views, scientific, if that's what you want to call it. And then, meeting which I like to call Hebrews. It things began to make more sense to me. And of course, I'm not scared to say, of course, it's faith. I don't think any Hebrew Israelite will be scared to say that. Of course, it's faith involved. You know what I'm saying? And I don't hide from that. So that's just a brief story.
That's what's up, man. So now y'all know where brother Yawasap coming from. He said he from Bushwick. Yo, gotta watch out for him. I don't want an ethnic bang with them Puerto Ricans over there. It's crazy. They crazy. Them niggas roll deep, y'all. They roll deep.
Murder and Gates, run, boom. Murder and Gates.
You speak Spanish fluently?
Nah, bro. Like, I understand.
He from New York, bro.
Listen, Puerto Ricans from Brooklyn is different from Puerto Ricans in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? We
yeah,
different.
That shit is true. That shit is true. It's like a whole different kind of like, it's weird when you think about it. But it be the grandmothers that be speaking it. Yeah, they be speaking now. Because what my
That's a fact.
But it be the grandmother. We was on the J train. God, what the fuck was not murder,
J,
but
you got the J, you got the M, and you got the L that run through the hood.
I forget what son lived that murder. We had to walk up this wild ass block, bro. I'm like, damn, son, where we at? But yeah, that's what's up though, bro. That's what's up, man. So he here. Is this your first like debate, or you have other ones that I don't know about?
Nah, I got a good amount, you know. So, but this is definitely you know, one of the biggest I'm gonna have, of course, because Garfield does have a name. But yeah, I'm most of my debates have been mainly theological. So, you know.
Right. Okay. So this is a historical one. So basically, you trying to say
this is like my second historical one, I would say.
All right. So you basically gonna skin the cat? You gonna skin the cat today?
Hey man, Lord be with Garfield, brother. Lord be with him.
Garfield is quiet. He like, oh man, I'm scared. I think Garfield is chilling by his kitty little box. He's scared, bro. But yeah, you still in Brooklyn, son?
Nah, I'm out in CT, but I be in the hood once in a while.
Yeah. Oh, so you out the way? You out there? Oh, it is kind of out.
Yeah. That's all, you know, Connecticut right there.
Yeah, but that's good though, man. So since your time of doing this, this is one question on that. So what do you think about like the codexes that was written by like the Aztecs? Have you like read any of those or broke any of those down?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think like some of their creation stories? Like
how
they see the world and shit.
Like the Popol Vuh?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, that's one of them.
Well, it aligns with the scriptures. I'll leave it at that.
We gonna have a fight tonight.
And a lot of people, I leave this. I give because I love Garfield. Garfield is actually one of my very good brothers. You know what I'm saying? I go to bat for Garfield. No cap. A lot of people will get confused because, you know, they see a plethora of multiple gods creating things in the beginning. Right, Robborn?
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
You see the same thing in the Bible. Most people don't understand the scriptures. The Bible is just not, even though it will teach monotheism in a sense of there is one most high God, but the Bible speaks of also things that are henotheistic, if y'all understand what I'm saying. Meaning the Most High put people in charge to do certain things and actually fulfill his will and his creation, if that makes sense.
Actually, I don't agree with that. I think henotheism is just that they acknowledge that other gods exist, but God says in the commandments, you should not worship no other God besides me.
Absolutely. But what did you just say? You said worship. So that worship only goes towards the Most High. When now you have God concept in your mind as an English term, the Israelites were called gods. Judges were called gods. Moses was called a god. In Psalms 82:6, which
haven't
Christ
I said
used,
that ye are all gods?
yeah,
but,
in Psalms 82:6.
But ye shall die like men, though.
There you go. In Psalms 82:6 is the same thing Christ quoted and said this to the Pharisees.
Shut up.
Nah, son, he built it, bro. Nah, let him cook. Yeah.
He got Robborn quoting scriptures. You know that's
you know Robborn low-key a Christian. He just don't want to admit it.
Nah, don't say that.
No,
Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that.
I'm way far from that.
Nah, Rob, you know I'm fucking with you, bro. You know.
Yeah, y'all converted fucking Garfield. Nigga talking about Jesus.
Garfield is secretly in my camp, bro. A lot of brothers don't know. He a general in my camp.
I'm about to kick you off.
Hey, for the audience, you know, Garfield is the general in my camp. You know, just so brothers know. But yeah, a lot of people just have a misconception of what the word God is. This because people don't go into the Hebrew to understand what is being taught. Like even the word Elohim, right, or what we would say Elohim, right? Allah meaning power.
That's right. Let's break it down. Tell them it means the powers, bro.
And then the yum, right? When you get the yum or the im at the end of words, it makes it plural. So what would that indicate? That there was
plural
more
powers.
than one.
Let's go.
There was more than one fulfilling the will of the one. It's just like if you read a textbook and you see Hitler attack this or Hitler did that. We all know Hitler was not in the front lines. Hitler sent his armies to do what he wanted them to do. It's the same thing. That's why it's, what do you see all throughout the scriptures? What? You see the tetragrammaton of hosts. Tetragrammaton of hosts. Hosts meaning his armies, his angels, his Alahayim. These things are simple to understand when you understand the language and you understand the culture.
So what about when you see this concept that you're speaking about in other places before there is a Torah? Just because that's there, how do you would make that equation to say that they're similar or they had contact with the Hebrews?
Oh, of course. Well, I wouldn't just say they had contact with the Hebrews. I mean, when you read the scriptures, you see before the Hebrews ever came into existence, being the last nation on earth. You see before that Abraham came from the land of Ur. He came from Mesopotamia, Sumer. So, of course, if he believed in one, and if he was teaching that, that means it would have to go back before him. He had to learn this from somewhere. He had to be taught this from somewhere. So, of course, you're going to see parallels. The difference is that the Israelites were given these laws, were given these things, and continue to carry it on. Right? You can even see that in the omen nomers of the names throughout the scriptures. Omen nomer meaning certain prophecies within the names. You see this all throughout the Bible. Even the Most High Tetragrammaton is an omen nomer in itself, right? So when you see Noah having 3 sons, one of his 3 sons being Shem, which is where the chosen lineage came from. The word Shem, most people would think it just means name, but Shem in the Hebrew also means reputation. So through the lineage of Shem was to be the reputation of the Most High and his chosen people. Right? Just once again, briefly summing it up.
All right. So like, and are you familiar with the Bonamapak morals?
Somewhat. I haven't dove into it as much, but I've definitely heard of it.
Yeah, they create stories. Yeah. And what about like the Aztecs, like how they write in red and black ink? What do you think about their stories?
Well, I would definitely say the Aztec is an amalgamation of people. I mean, you can see even people from the Far East coming through the Pacific and invading the lands of the Aztecs. Even, Aztecs.
What you mean by Far East? Far East who?
Like Asians, like what we will call today like Chinese, Mongoloids, things of that nature. They invaded those lands in Central America from the Pacific, and there's proof of that. So to sit here and say every single person walking in pre-Columbian America was an Israelite is folly. It's the same thing like to say every single person that came off of the slave ship was an Israelite. I think that's folly. But of course, what I would teach would be biblical prophecy. It would be things of that nature. I would teach why we teach certain things. Right? A lot of people, once again, they'll look at the 12 tribe chart and just won't understand what it actually. Most people don't even know how to teach it. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Is it an astronomical chart?
Hell no. What's this? Rastafarian smoking weed shit?
Nah, I ain't talking about that.
Nah, I'm messing with you, bro. I'm messing with you.
This ancient shit. This is Dead Sea Scroll type shit. I'm talking about that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but the Essenes, but when you go to the Dead Sea Scroll and you see the different factions of the Essenes, there are certain Essenes that adapted a lot of Hellenistic culture. So,
yeah,
of course,
even with the current Hebrew. You talked about these numerals, right?
Oh, that's a fact, bro.
And you talking about an abjad alphabet. Yeah, the Hebrew language is an abjad alphabet. That shit comes straight from Greeks, bro. So when you start looking at how
I wouldn't say
go ahead.
I wouldn't say the Hebrew comes from Greeks. I would say the
No. I'm talking about the abjad alphabet. How the numbers, the letters have a number attached to it, and that number has a specific meaning.
That's you're talking about gematria.
Yeah.
Well, you would see that a little bit before the Greeks. I would like. What'd you say, bro? You kind of.
I said, yeah, you can see 2 things with it. I already know where you're going. You can look at, what is that dude name? What the fuck is his name?
I mean, you can see that in Persia.
No, not Persian dude. It's,
I'm saying you can see it in Persia.
Nah. But I'll let you run with that, man. Because the abjad alphabet is a part of this Semitic language that the Arabs have it. They have it. But when you look in the Dead Sea Scrolls and you look at Q318 and that Hebrew calendar, you see that them niggas got the Zodiac, 12 tribes on that motherfucker. Yes, son.
Of course, but that's not really much of a big deal. It just shows you the amalgamation of cultures. I mean, you even
I think
see
it's
that.
a big deal. You don't think
I
that's
don't
a
think
big
it's
deal?
no, not at all. It's an amalgamation of cultures. This is something when you understand the biblical account and the storylines. We have always been a people that have adapted to other people's cultures. This is why a plethora of things always happen to our people. I mean, you even see that when you see different tribes coming from the west coast of Africa and bringing their cultures from over there and coming over here, and they begin to amalgamate with each other. And especially in places like Puerto Rico, with the Yoruba amalgamating with certain things that the Tainos did.
Yeah, but
and
you can clearly see those things, and you can see it in the
and you can
language. There's no
clearly
guessing.
see those. You can clearly see those things over here.
No, well, see what over here?
The amalgamation of culture.
No, yeah, but you ain't seeing no amalgamation and no Hebrew shit coming off that boat. You ain't seeing that. That you're not seeing. Where?
That's
the kill shot. That's the kill shot right there.
I definitely will disagree with you.
I mean, that's cool.
But what you have to understand, right, is what a lot of y'all dudes is you argue a straw man because you don't fully understand. And maybe we could set thing up because I gotta definitely I'll probably be on for another 10.
See what happened, y'all? When it start getting hot, my man go get out of here.
Brother, I literally just said I'm gonna extend my stay here for another 10, 15 minutes. But you have to understand what we teach first before you begin to argue a straw man that's gonna satisfy your world view. Before you go into, well, what about this and well, what about that? Why do we say we even ended up here, and why do we say that all these things happen to us? Why, Garfield? Why, Mr. African spiritualist, my favorite fan?
I ain't no African spiritualist. Number one, this is gonna be like that.
That's what it says. That's what it says.
Yeah, I was trolling That's why I had that on there. But
God, I'm messing with you, bro.
No, I get it. No, I know you is. Well, what I'm saying is this, right? When we look at the intangible culture, right? The intangible culture is the culture that the people brought with them. We don't have to put bifocals on to find these West African cultures without looking at no DNA, right? We can see Buldoon, we can see Twi and the Maroon culture, and I should start with them because those are the people who ran away and wasn't indoctrinated by the European, right? So when we look at wherever they are, Panama, Puerto Rico, Haiti, we see all of these Pacific cultures that you just talked about, the amalgamation. We can see the people from Dahomey. We can see their Pacific spiritual sense. We see all of that. We see the naming traditions. We see the names that they have. We see it all. We see them recreating the actual things that they built there. I'm finishing right now. So what I'm saying is, when you're saying we don't know why you say that, we looking at what the people did and what the archaeology shows and what the people say for themselves. We don't see not one revolt where a nigga called on Yahweh getting off that boat, bro. We don't see none of that niggas talking about Abraham or nothing.
But what is the point of you saying that? Does that disagree? Is what you're showing disagreeing with my worldview? Let me ask you that.
Your worldview is based off of faith. And the actual facts of the people, show me the Maroon. Listen.
Worldview.
Oh, hold on. I'm gonna finish right now. This is real quick, brother. Show me one Maroon community. I don't care where you put in America that you can show me the Hebrew culture. Hebrew culture. Show me that. Just name one of them people, and I'll be a Yahwehite tonight, nigga. I'll drop my name and turn to Yahweh.
So
yes, I will.
Once again, you're not understanding our worldview. That's why you continue to create a straw man and like to argue against it when that's nothing that we teach. Of course, yeah. If you want to say faith, that's cool. I believe in the scriptures. I'm not scared to stand on faith. But the reason why my faith is firm is because of prophecy proves it to be true. I know Garfield will probably want to unmute and go into textual criticism, and you could get smoked in that shit too. We could talk about that. But yo, shut the hell up, bro. But to me it's a straw man.
My mic wasn't muted, but I'll ask a question. You know what I noticed with you?
What's good, bro?
Whenever you were backed up in a corner, you make an excuse. Hold on, let me finish my point.
I said, I'm good.
This is what I'm saying. This question is simple. It's not a total requirement. It's not an absolute. What I'm saying is, all we are asking for the last 10 years is to show us this Hebrew culture within when the slaves got off the ships. Now, one thing that you guys use is Jeremiah 17:4, which is misused because it don't even mean what you guys say it means.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't, brother. But we
what
could
does
get
it
into
mean then?
another-
Are you saying that it just means the land, right? Because faithful to God.
We'll get into that. We'll get it. No, I don't need nobody else. I could read it myself. The point I'm trying to say to you is you're falling into a trap, and you're gonna see that you can't say it on one hand and then say on another hand. And see, look at this right here in the culture. You could tell that the Hebrews was here. So if you see it, if you want to prove it today in the debate, you're contradicting yourself because we're saying you can't find it coming off the slave ship. So now you're gonna come today and say, look at this.
What I can show is Israelites getting in slave ships and coming here.
Okay, show me that. Show me that.
Show me that.
Show me that.
All right, give me a second.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the end of Dagger Squad. The end of Dagger Squad.
Men and women, this is the end of Dagger Talk with slave voyages. They had the Yah names, but did they come to America?
Oh man.
Where's the deportation, the demarcation of these people? And ladies and gentlemen, you can sign up for slave voyages, and you, my friend, can basically say what these names mean or sound like. Anybody can do this. And by the way, there's some Egyptian gods. 8 years ago? I saw Ptah. I saw a nigga named Asa, a 9-year-old boy. So I guess we Egyptians, nigga. The Egyptians came off the boat because a nigga had a name that said Asa. So we Egyptians, y'all.
Once again, you're arguing the straw man. Would you say
I'm just talking shit.
I got you. Would you say certain Moors followed the customs of Jews?
Moors?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so did Moors come over here in slavery as well?
They came over here without slavery.
Correlation, though.
So now, like, hold on, brother.
Hold on,
y'all,
bro. If you're asking me to do something, you gotta walk with me, brother.
We gonna walk with you, but then we gotta contextualize more, and we gotta contextualize.
Go ahead. Simple question. I asked a simple question.
Yes, because
did Moors also come over here as slaves?
Yes.
Okay, so what are we talking about then?
Now, I'm going to tell you what we're talking about, because that's why I told you got to contextualize the term. The people that were called Moors at a specific time frame, especially around that slave trade, were Muslim. Mm-hmm. And the Europeans identified them as such. And how we know this is that when you have... hold on. I'm going to be done real quick. This is real quick.
Slow down, brother. You always do this. Slow down.
No, brother, this is real quick. I just need to finish my point.
Slow down.
I am slowing down.
You already admitted.
No, bro.
That
No.
Moors
right, go ahead.
Jews, right? Didn't you?
Yes, in Europe.
Okay. And some of these Moors that were Jews came here in the slave trade, right?
Yes.
So what the fuck are we talking about?
I'm going to tell you what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the time of the slave trade. So now, when you have Prince Henry the Navigator, who sent his esquire out, and they go on the Age of Discovery, Mr. Zuera, he grabs black people up over here. Let me finish, bro. This is important. So when he grabs them, he thinks that they're Moors because they're black, bro. So now when he grabs them, he says, yo, they don't speak the Moorish language. What was the Moorish language during the time of the slave trade? It was Arabic. Because at this time frame you're talking about, you got to contextualize this these people are Muslim. Now, if you want to get into where you getting from, you have black Muslims who are there who are Moors, and then you have Jews who are living in this cosmopolitized type of community. So some of these people interacted with each other, but they did not. They were not Jews. They were Moors. They were Muslim at this specific time. Did they have some Jewish things that they would do? They shared? Yeah, we could see that over there. Now, when we get to this point is we don't have to look for Allah. We can see Allah coming off the boat. We can see those people that you want to call black Moors over here. We can see the revolt of 1835 where they're calling on this, where they're writing Arabic, where they're I'm slowing down. I'm slowing down. I'm slowing down.
You're taking what I'm saying and you're creating a straw man, bro.
I'm not, what does straw man mean, bro? Because
straw man means you're arguing something that has nothing to do with what I'm saying.
Okay, can you tell me what did I say that's dealing with the slave trade that does not have anything to do with what we're talking about?
No, okay, it's what I'm talking about. So you've already admitted that certain Moors were Jews and they came here in the slave trade.
No, I never said that certain Moors were Jews. I never said that. I didn't say that.
You didn't say that?
No, I didn't.
So if
I said that some Moors.
If I go back, hold on a second.
So
if I go back, you're not gonna just keep talking over me. So if I go back, and if I could get this entire recording, you didn't just say that?
No, I said that some Moors have Jewish customs.
And you
That's
and
what
yeah,
I
and
said.
I literally so if some Moors had Jewish customs, quote unquote, did that mean that they had an origin in Judaism?
No.
Because there was a mass conversion of Islam, not only in Europe, but also on the west coast of Africa, right? You can even read this in the paper known as the Saharan Cloak. Didn't that happen when Jews were going into Muslim culture? Did that happen?
Yeah, no,
mass conversion.
It's no mass. First and foremost,
okay.
Wait a minute. We gotta
scratch that off.
Hold on, let's be slow here, right? So when you're talking about them Jews that is in West Africa, they're not promoting their religion, they're not converting nothing. Those are merchants, bro. And those are not black people, fam. And we can see these people originally when they come to Guinea, those become your Lancados, bro. They marry into those African tribes, right? And then they're dealing with trade. So now when you look at that, you can see some of those people are helping like the Balanta tribe by doing their weapons trade or their swords. That is the historical point at that point, bro. Like this extra thing you talking about, these original tribe, no, those are Europeans who married into African people, bro. That's who that was,
I
bro.
never said anything like this. This is why you guys are hilarious. This is why I'm gonna be honest. If y'all want smoke with me, I always say, let's set up a debate.
Yeah.
Because and
you ain't ready
why
yet,
I say this, the reason why let me finish. The reason why I say this is because you're arguing against something that never came out of my mouth. Pause. You argue with something that I never claimed.
Wait, so let's make something clear. So why don't you make this clear for me? So you don't care if those are white Jews as long as it's Jewish culture in West Africa?
No, I never said that.
So this is the historical point. Those people are not black people, bro. They not melanated. They not us. Them Jews that went to West Africa, bro, are not black people, bro. They not. Those are Europeans. That's what I'm talking about. So when I'm talking the historical joint. When we look, yes, Jews went to West Africa and they were known to be merchants, bro. We can see the taxes that the Muslims is putting on them and all of that, son. We can see them in Ghana when they living on the outside or on the outskirts. We know who they are. They not black, bro. They not African. They not. So that I'm never gonna dispute that there were Jews there.
Say,
hold on, both of y'all stop for a second. Time out.
Damn, this nigga been talking most of the time.
I know. Time out, Yawasap. Time out.
Nigga always do this, but good.
Time out. So let's just do a slow walk, 30 seconds. The conversation was show people coming off the slave ship. You said, nah, I could show you people getting on the slave ship.
Yeah, we still waiting for that.
Now, hold on. Now, the people getting on the slave ships, you put it out there like, like I got y'all. Like, hey, here's some Moors. The issue now with the Moors, if you're saying the Moors were formerly Jews and you're going to hold to that, you're going to lose that conversation because you're going to have to trace back. You see, it's a lot of what ifs and a lot of faith. They can't show anybody because nobody's coming off the slave ship remembering this. There's no slaves who is a Jew per se. Jews were exempt from this. They were the traders, the merchants. They were the ones who were the middlemen officially making the money off the slave trade as far as passing it on to the Europeans. So if anybody who is a Jew, who is a merchant, you're going to claim them and that they converted to be Moors, not particularly them. But when you look at the Algeria Jews, the Jews of Taut, in the Saharan cloak book that you're talking about, when you look at those Algerian Jews, those Jews didn't go on no slave trade. All of them didn't convert, and a lot of them were killed off. So I'm trying to figure out who are these Moors that were Jews. Can you show us them how they converted from Jews? Moors. That's the question on the floor.
My bad. I thought I was off mute. I thought I was off mute. My bad. I was talking. I thought I was off mute. So this is what I'm saying is this is going to be an extensive conversation. So, of course, we're going to have to go into a lot of history in order to get this understanding. This is why I always say, bro, just set it up. You should know.
But Yawasap, you just said that you was going to show it to us, brother. What happened? You said, hold up, give me a second.
What?
You said, I'm muting up.
Robot is funny as fuck, yo. He's funny as fuck. That dude is funny, man. Ah, man, let me
fuck with Yawasap. Yawasap is cool, but goddamn, Yawasap, you said that you was about to end Dagger Squad today. You pull that out, pause, no homo. You ending this shit today. There's no more Dagger Squad. So we waiting for that, man. Yo, look at the chat. The black Moors are 100% Jews. Get the fuck out of here.
I can't even speak, bro.
We didn't hear you, brother. You was muted, fam. I don't know if you was
I was
talking.
just speaking the whole time.
Yo, my brother, I swear to everything I love, fam, you was muted, bro.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Start over. Yeah, start over, brother.
My bad. I ain't know my phone was bugging. All right, so this is from.
You muted again. Is that me, Garfield?
Yeah, muted.
How am I muted? You don't hear me?
I think it might be a connection problem.
Let me turn my Wi-Fi off.
Yeah, Wi-Fi don't work good with StreamYard.
That's better?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right, work. All right, so boom.
Don't hear you, bro.
All right. Give me. I'm gonna leave and come right back.
All right, cool. Bam, ba, ba, bam, ba, bam.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's not coming back. He ain't coming back. With Yawasap, bro. Yo, you know how to pronounce that name he said, brother?
Yo, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back. You're live in the flesh. Elohim powers, baby.
All right, I'm on my phone. Is it when I get off of the StreamYard to go look at something on my phone?
You can't. Yeah, you can't do that. Only if
you can't do that.
No, bro. Only on Zoom you could do that. That's what was happening. So you was probably trying to read something.
Yeah, because every time I'm going to either a PDF or like something I have on my phone, it seems like
you can't. Nah, you can't do that. That's what was happening. So you probably went to go out of it.
All right, let me try one more time. Let me see. Let's see if
that shit ain't gonna work, bro. Trust me, I know something. Don't work.
Yeah, that shit's definitely not working because you can't even hear me, bro.
It's all good. You can just tell us what it is, though. What the source is, we be cool with it.
All right, I'm a send it to Garfield.
Yeah, it's cool. We accept it. We accept all information, man. Today you get the end Dagger Squad, bro. I ain't got nothing to do with this. Yeah, man. So y'all see the brother Yawasap. Make sure you come through. Don't get back to sleep because he try to be calm on you. Don't get rocked to sleep, y'all. Ding. So how y'all doing out there, man? Y'all
Yo,
doing
can you
good
hear
out
me?
there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you.
All right, where we at? That shit's crazy how you go off of it and you can't hear nobody.
Nah, you can't do it, bro. It won't work, man. The only thing you can do that on Zoom,
I've
bro.
only been on StreamYard mainly on my laptop, never on my phone.
Yeah, that shit don't work. Definitely. You can't even share your screen on this shit, bro.
Yeah, that's crazy.
This source here, Delaware's Forgotten Folk, University of Pennsylvania, 1943. What are you saying about that source?
Just read it.
You know, this is
that's the Delaware.
Hold on a second. Just to let you know, bro. Did you get it from the direct source or another source? Because I'm gonna tell you what happened the other day. An Israelite brought this out the other day, the same source, and it doesn't say what it says. Because I have the book on my computer right now. I could bring it up. It don't say what you're saying.
So bring it up.
All right, cool.
You should know, Garfield. You should know
that
I'm a dude that if there's something that I'm saying is incorrect, you can show me that.
All right, cool.
So this is one simple place that I've read a while back. Wrote it down. Boom, boom, boom. You know. So if I'm getting something, because I'm not even gonna sit here and lie to you. And I read this shit years ago, so I don't even know when the fuck I got it. You know what I'm saying? So if you have the primary and the primary don't say what this is saying, show me I'm wrong.
I got it. I see what happened is, in the meantime, you can mute up. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is sign in on my other computer, and I'm going to jump on. But what happened is, I'm going to tell you this. The source don't say this at all. And I'm going to show you live. And what happened is, there's a dude by the name of Tazara that showed this on Bereen, and we embarrassed him. I had the video on here, me and 93. It don't say that at all. But I'm gonna show you right now. I'm gonna go on my other computer and do it. Hold on.
Kyle, what up, brother?
All right, let me come
what it do, man?
I'm in the cubicle now, son.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm like, damn, y'all kicked me off.
Nah, we won't kick you off.
Hold on, guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. Let me pull this up right now for him. All right. Delaware, the actual book. I'm gonna pull it up on the ebook. I got the ebook on my computer. This is my old computer. I'm gonna bring it up.
Hey, make sure you send me that.
It's an ebook. I can't email you an ebook. All right. It's actually on the page already. So let me share it right now. I'll show everybody right now. What I'm gonna do first, before I do that, I'm gonna show the source that you showed so we could put it side by side. All right. Hold on one second.
Is this a case of Babylon to Timbuktu, the Hebrews in Ghana, and it don't say it in the source?
I don't.
It's a case of misinformation spread by the Israelite community, and they didn't realize it because the first person that did it faked them out, and they didn't realize it. That's my Rudolph. No. Talking about the Israelites.
Nah, he's talking about. I mean, you don't got to keep saying Israelites didn't write this. So
no, but who you got this from?
I'm not. I literally told you I read this years ago, so I can't even tell you that.
Cool. All right. Okay. All right. So let me put it on the screen right now. I'm gonna put it on the screen. What you just sent me. Hold on one second.
As long as you don't show nobody my number, brother.
No. I texted to myself.
Nah, I'm messing with you, bro.
I texted to myself. All right. So this is what he actually just sent me. Just for those who don't know.
Okay.
On the screen right now. All right. It says in 711 AD, the Moors crossed Straits of Gibraltar and began their conquest on the Spanish Peninsula. After governing Spain for 800 years, the Moors were defeated by the Christians, and many of their descendants were sold to the slave traders who brought them in shackles to America. All right, hold on one second. And it's actually, this quote here is actually not from this book, actually. It's not even from this book. It's from another book, and they use this as a source. All right,
so would you say, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you say that this is a lie?
No. That part, what I'm reading right now, no.
Okay, so if this isn't a lie, are you just saying that the source that they quoted it from is incorrect? But what?
Well, here's the problem though. Like,
let me ask my question.
Okay.
Oh, no. What is that? What you're saying is that these people were Jews. That's what you're saying now. So you're trying to tie these Moors or these black people.
Hold on a second. Yeah, hold on a second. So is what this says right here. Let's scratch the Jews off the table. Let's scratch that off the table real quick.
Mm-hmm.
When it says after governing,
I gotta jump back on my other computer because this computer.
All right, I'll wait for you to come back.
But go ahead, keep talking. I could hear you on the other computer. Go ahead.
Oh, if you can hear me, I'll keep talking. So when it says after governing Spain for 800 years, the Moors were defeated by the Christians, and many of their descendants were sold. Damn, you took it off the screen, bro.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Remember, I can't.
The Moors were defeated by the Christians, and many of their descendants were sold to the slave traders.
Thank you. Okay. So is that true?
That one is a weird one because you got to look at the date. The date is 7/11, right? Slave trade don't happen until.
Well, it literally said 800 years later.
Right, 800 years later. So how do you prove that, right? That's a hard one to prove. And now when you look at it, they never conquered all of Spain. They only was in Andalusia. That's another false thing where the Moors took over Europe. No, they was only in that part in Andalusia. That's it. They never took over all of Europe, right? Or Spain. That never happened.
Well, in terms of the Muslim Moors, you're correct, but not in anyway. That's a whole nother.
I don't know about See, this is the issue. This is gonna go back to this Moor. What this Moor means at 7/11.
Well, Moor is like calling in my worldview from definitely reading a lot upon this. A Moor is like calling somebody an African American, bro. It's just a term.
Nah, bro.
It's not a Moor is not.
No,
Can
bro.
I finish my point, bro? Why do you keep doing that shit?
Because it's not, bro.
But if it's not, let me finish my sentence and then correct me after. It's a little bit of discipline, bro.
Here we go. They go to
I love you, boy.
now.
You still my boy. You know you still my boy. But all jokes aside, so it's the same thing like calling somebody an African American. It doesn't show their lineage or their origin. That's literally all I wanted to say, brother.
Right. So with definitions, right, they mean something at a specific time frame. And when you're looking at this and you about to get into the Crusades, when you get to that is these Muslims fighting these Europeans. And then you have this Reconquista that comes into play that begins the origin of the transatlantic slave trade. We don't know specifically how all of those people could be the descendants of. We don't know that, bro. So that's
all those people could be the descendants of what?
Hold on.
All right.
I think he was saying
descendants. Hey, Kyle, you was gonna say something, bro?
Yeah. How you doing, bro?
Hey, shalom, brother. What's good, man?
My shalom, Kai.
Chilling, man. You?
Okay, cool. I got a question for you, man. I don't know if you know about me. I used to be a Hebrew myself personally. And what I realized is that I was making assertions based on a narrative. Like I just challenge you to do something. I want to challenge you to go back through the material because you're a very, very intellectual individual from the conversation that I've heard you engaging with Garfield over the past few weeks and months, really. Do you feel like you may be asserting the ideology of being a Hebrew onto these historical writings and the history that we're pulling up, or is that something that the actual documentation is leading you down?
It's what the documentation is leading me down.
Okay,
what I will admit, not in myself, because Garfield knows how I feel about certain sources, and I'm not trying to bash my brothers, right? But there is definitely a lack of honesty in terms of how Israelites use sources. But it's just like Garfield say, hey, I'm gonna have to correct you on this. Hey, if you could correct me on it, I yield. And if he corrects me on it, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take that source off the table. But it doesn't mean that means he's gonna have to do that with thousands of other sources I have as well.
Yeah, I completely understand. Yeah, now I get you, bro, 115%. But check this out, right? So what I've noticed is like, when I was there and I was studying it myself, I started doing fact checking and stuff, and I realized that the narrative, it was pushed me to believe certain things were true and pertain to me. Because like think about it for a second, like the narrative, typically when you become a Hebrew Israelite, you already or you don't know the history, so you start researching it. But when you start researching something and you have a faulty premise due to misleading sources of false information, now when you get deeper into your studies, if you were to throw away or to completely erase all of that stuff that was misleading and false, the information that you're gathering now in your deeper stages, it would not have a logical connection to your current mindset or position. That makes sense? Because like if you just erase Rudolph Windsor from Babylon and Timbuktu, all them books from the miscalculations of 70 AD. If we erase that out of the mindset, because I think you know that's false information. You erase that
Yes, it
foundation.
is.
Yeah, so if you erase that foundation, now the information that you're getting, it doesn't fit into
But
it.
that I agree with what you're saying. But me, I like I always say, I only could represent myself,
Yeah,
right? And I
that's
only could
respectable.
represent my school. I can't represent what other people teach and what other people use. And I've never used per se the Babylon of Timbuktu, I believe it's called. I've read it because I've heard about it when I first came in, but like when Rob Bourne asked me, I came into this because I've always been an advocate reader, but I've never fully studied, and I'm still on the quest of studying, West Coast of Africa and Europe. Those have never been places where I studied before the truth, right? Just being honest. I've always studied my own culture because my father's side, they were Tainos, right? Have oral traditions, have paperwork, have all of these things. My father's side helped with some of the people that revolted in El Grito de Lares in Puerto Rico, right? That which was a slave revolt. So that's just one part. My mother's mother, my grandmother, she's a Mayan from Honduras, grew up a couple acres away from pyramids. So she also came with. So I've always looked into my own people. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get it. I
So
respect it.
by looking at certain things over here, I already scratched my head like there's something more than meets the eye. There's a connection between the quote unquote old world and the Americas. And that was just before I was an Israelite. This is middle school, high school, because I've always read. And then coming into the faith, I began. Say it again, Garfield. My bad.
The pseudoisms are very attractive. It's very attractive.
I definitely wouldn't call it pseudoisms. I mean, it's what the people are saying themselves that's captivating. That's what got me. Is what the people are actually saying.
But do you
know what I'm
see
saying?
how possibly the effects of global colonialism or colonization could affect the worldviews? Because this is one thing that you'll see, especially in West Africa. You'll see that the colonization that they went through, it affected everything from oral traditions to the way they do sacrifices to that whole nine. And so that same thing would also be
Well, of
prevalent.
course, colonization will play a part in certain things. But then when certain things are written down, pre-Columbian and then translated from pre-Columbian into the current languages, that should make you scratch your head.
Gotcha. No, I understand. I'm actually. I don't want to say too much. I want y'all to have a great debate this afternoon on this topic. Hopefully it still goes down. You don't convert back to being a, the announcer.
Nah, it's definitely gonna happen. I mean, I've
Okay.
already extended my stay here just because you have some good brothers, but I do got to tend to the kids in a few. But I gotta let me see what Garfield's talking about.
All right, no doubt.
No,
Thanks for the dialogue, bro.
Rob wanted me to post.
Always, bro. Can you zoom in, Garfield? It's kind of
Hold on, let me see if I can zoom in. Hold on a second.
And this is in terms of what I gave you, right?
I have no idea.
No, that's not that. That's something different. That's
What's
dealing
this,
with
bro?
that's dealing with the term Moor. That comes from the Moors of West Africa and Portuguese. So on that bottom line where you see where it's underlined. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you could flip your phone sideways.
Can you zoom into it?
Search for the 19 men. Zurara referred to them as morals. More is a complicated term.
Go to the next page.
It comes from the Latin moros, which in Roman times simply referred to the inhabitants of the province of Mauritania, that is modern-day Algeria and northeast Morocco, otherwise known as the Maghreb.
All right, stop there for 1 second. So in Mauritania, right, one of the oldest civilizations that we have are the people from West Africa, the Saniki people, right? Those are the people who are the foundation of Ouagadougou, which is later termed Ghana, right? Those people formed the civilization there called Dar Tichet, right? So those people who are the inhabitants of this specific area are that specific group of people and that. Did those people become a part of the slave trade? Absolutely, but this is prior to Islam. They're talking 2000 or 1600 BCE, right? Keep going.
The Morocco, otherwise known as Maghreb.
I'm sorry, you said, just so I could walk with you, you said what was between 2000 and 600 BCE?
Dar Tichet.
The Dar Tichet, and you're somehow equating that to the slave trade. How?
I'm telling those people, the Saniki people or the Mandi people is a part of the Mandi diaspora in the Americas. You can see the Mandi people getting off the boat with their culture in the color because so I can say directly that these are descendants of that because of who these people are. All right.
Okay, but would you say that there's no I'm just trying to understand you, Rock. Would you say that there was no migrations, and I'm not even talking about Jews. Like I said, we could scratch that off the table with this question. Was there no migrations into that land from other peoples? Even if these other peoples went to this land and followed this culture, that they eventually adapted to the culture that was prevalent there. Are you saying that never happened?
I don't know about that being there. I know about Dar Tichet. I know about the people who built that stone city, right?
Well, you answered it good, bro. You say you don't know. That's cool.
I don't know none of that. Unless you got honest. Some other people. I'm really speaking about the people who are the Saniki, who are the Mandi group, who are part of the diaspora, who a lot of us are descendants of. All right. Keep going, bro. Keep reading.
But you can't say that, though, because you just admitted you don't know something.
No. I'm telling you. You asked me if there's another group of people there. I don't know that. I don't know about these other group of people. What I'm doing is looking at 2000 BC to 1600 BC of this group of people who are the Saniki people, who are the the founders of Ouagadougou, who are there. That's what I can prove without a shadow of a doubt.
All I ask, right?
But listen. That's what you call a straw man at this point. Because
that's
now
not a straw man. I just asked you a question.
I'm going directly to a group of people by tribe and by designation of a group who will later become a part of the slave trade. That's direct. You want to talk about other? I don't know no other. I don't know no other. And
if you don't know no other, meaning you haven't done any groundwork to understand.
I did do the groundwork of it, brother, and they don't.
Maybe you should just let me finish my statement, and then
I want him to finish reading this more thing so we can before we even get that whole lot.
But you made a claim. But I'm not making claims.
I'm making this, brother. I'm making historical facts. You asking me what if? There's no Jews there. I know that.
I'm not saying what if. I'm saying.
Could you let Garfield finish reading this, please? I know there's no Jews there. I know 2000, 1600 BC. Ain't no Jews over there. I know that for a fact.
I agree with you.
All right, so now let's
I agree with you that in 2000 to 600 BC, there's no Jews there, but we're talking about the slave trade.
Okay, so brother. All right, brother.
Why are you getting so frustrated, bro?
All right, hold on. Let me finish reading. In the 7th century, Isidore of Seville derived morals from the Greek moros for black, in an early instance of what would become a common medieval European association between Maori and dark skin. However, as a result of the invasions and immigration that beginning in 711 brought significant numbers of Moroccans across the straits and into Spain, the term morals and subsequently its Romance derivatives Moro and Moro became more complex. First of all, there was nothing ethnically uniform about the invaders. There were the Berbers, the indigenous peoples of the Moroccan highlands. Then there were the Arabs who had recently conquered and begun to settle in the Maghreb. 8th century Latin sources from Spain were careful to distinguish between Maori and Arabis, but before long the terms became synonymous. And ultimately, by the later Middle Ages, Moor had all but eclipsed Arab in vernacular usage. At roughly the same time, a new ethnic wrinkle was added. Due to the growing percentage of sub-Saharan blacks among the slave population in Morocco and Grenada, the category of Moor was stretched to accommodate black Moors, in quotation marks. Second, after 1711, the term Moor was saddled with religious connotations, stemming from the simple fact that from 1711 on, the Moroccans who came to Spain as conquerors and immigrants were Muslims. It was, of course, specifically this religious component of Moorness that was used to justify Ibero-Christian hostility toward the Moors in the struggle for peninsular hegemony. As a result of crusade propaganda, the Moors came to be regarded as the quintessential enemies of the faith. Presumably, it was skin color and geographical contiguity that first suggested the inclusion of the peoples of Rio de Oro in the category of Moor. That was commonly used by the Portuguese to identify the enemy in Morocco. But Zarara's apparent confidence in applying the term to the 19 men who got away is belied, first off, by his characterization of the novelty of the contact between. It's cut off right here.
All right, so that's the story that I told you, Rio de Oro, them Europeans who coming from Spain, who go over there and they take those Africans and they get them and they run into a person named Adahu the Moor, who is a Berber. And this is the everything that this is saying is what I'm telling you, bro. This thing goes by time frame. And none of this historical context of this term is a Jew mentioned. Nowhere. And I told you that after 7/11 or in this time frame,
Who said that?
Word, bro, like, I mean, I'm done, bro. I'm telling you, Moor ain't got shit to do with no Jew, bro.
All I said was, who said that? Who said that the Moor was specifically assigned to Jews?
Brother, you made the claim that those people are Jews.
I made the claim that Moors
are Jews.
Let me finish. I'll address what I made. I made the claim that Moors is a term kind of used like African American. So there were Arabs that were labeled Moors. They were North Africans that were labeled Moors. They were people who followed Islam that were labeled Moors. They were people who followed Judaism, i.e. Jews, that were labeled Moors.
That never was in that. That never was in there. That last
That's
part.
Literally all I said.
That's fine. And what you just said, that last sentence is not in the historical documentation, bro.
I
disagree.
Jews
are not Moors. They not, bro.
I disagree.
Bro, listen. Okay, you can disagree. I just sourced up on you. And it's right there on the screen, bro. I mean, it was right there.
You sourced up on the origin of the name. You didn't source up on the...
Listen, man. So when they're talking about because when they're talking about the people of the highlands, they're talking about the Hararitans, right? Those are the original black.
Are you gonna keep cutting me off, or at least you know, if you have a conversation, you're gonna have to hear
just cut me
another
off.
side.
You just cut me off from talking, bro.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Everybody.
Would you like me to go on mute, Rob?
Put in the chat that he just not cut me off.
Would you like me to go on
mute, if he didn't cut me off?
I'll go on mute, my good brother.
Yeah, son. Like, yo, bro, the Jews are not Moors, bro. And this thing about Morocco and Mauritania, these terms just define a specific group of people at a specific time. When you start talking about 7/11 and you start doing, this is all strictly dealing with Muslim, bro. And they lied to their crown to say, like, yo, fuck it, to keep this crusade on, we gonna have to say that these niggas is Moors and they the enemy of the faith and they don't got Jesus Christ, but they were not that. Those people that was on the coast that they ran into were decentralized, meaning that they were not a part of the empires that were there, bro. And that's really that simple. There's no more Jew, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that is, bro. And that's it. That's what I was saying, bro. And that's why I didn't want to go through all of this, because this is like you said, a long conversation where we got to talk about the origin of Moor, who used it, what people would identify, and once we get to the time frame we talking about, then we can move further. That's all. I don't remember all of that stuff, man. I ain't read this shit in a minute.
I got you.
I gotta go pull it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were done.
I'm done now.
Okay, cool. So you just literally said what I said. You don't pay attention to what you say. So over time, people were being labeled Moors that weren't actually the origin of why Moor was used, and then they were persecuted? Did you just say that, Robborn?
Yo,
Did you just say that? Did you hear what I just said?
no, what did you say?
I got you. You got to pay attention, brother. So you literally just agreed with what I just said. You said that the term Moor was eventually used so they can further a persecution of people, when that was not how the original name Moor was used. Did you just say that?
Bro, I've been saying this the whole entire time that I've been talking, bro. Like, I don't understand where the disconnect is. I told you that the term Moor means different things at different times. And since the time frame that we're talking about, and you brought up 7-Eleven, it took on a religious connotation. Then after this point to the
No,
middle,
that's not.
bro,
You're
whatever,
misrepresenting
man.
what I used, brother. That's it.
Bro, all right, man. Like I
Because
said, we waiting for you. You supposed to did something. You were
hold on,
supposed
brother.
to
Don't
do
change.
something.
Don't change.
No,
Don't
no, no.
change.
We
Don't
not
change
changing nothing. We not
So
changing anything. We
relax,
not changing. No, no. You just did the Hebrew shuffle. 30 minutes
brother.
ago,
I'm
you
not
were
doing a
supposed to.
Hebrew shuffle, bro.
30 minutes ago,
I'm
you were
trying to have a
supposed to.
conversation with you.
30 minutes ago, you were supposed to show us the Hebrew niggas getting off the boat. You ain't do it
Raborn,
yet. Where's it at?
Raborn,
You took us
calm
down this
down a
Morris
second,
rabbit
brother.
hole. You took us down the Morris rabbit hole. You said you gonna show us the Jew niggas coming off the boat.
Are you
Where them niggas at?
are you finished talking?
Yeah, I'm finished. I'm waiting for you to answer
I
this
got
original
you. So
diversion you pulled.
can we deal with one thing at a time? The only reason why we're here, Robborn, is because of the source that you showed and the claim that you made. You never had to do none of
No,
that.
we are here because
Let
you
me
decided.
finish.
No.
Why do you keep cutting me off?
I'm gonna cut you off
Garfield, you got
now.
to moderate or something. Tell this nigga shut up, bro.
I'm not gonna. No, this ain't Clubhouse, nigga. This is why you
Yo,
like to be on
I'm not gonna, but
Clubhouse.
I'm not a
Yeah,
child. I'm
I'm
not a
not. I'm not a
child that's
child
gonna
neither. But
allow this.
I'm not gonna
But
let you.
you acting like a child,
I'm
bro.
not gonna let. No, you're acting like a child. When you got caught
How?
out there, you're the one who said that you're gonna show us that
Raborn,
people came off the boat.
Raborn, we
You're
only
the
are
one.
talking
You
about
are
this.
the one who
This is
introduced.
crazy.
You are the one to introduce Moors to this conversation. We would not be talking about Moors if you didn't do it. Don't say I brought something up, then we gotta correct you on the term Moor. We gotta correct you on your Pacific source because you don't know the history. That's what happened. We're talking about Moors because you brought it up. I wasn't bringing up no
I
Moors.
got
You
you.
did that. So
I
where is
got
your
you.
source?
And now that I'm
Where is
beginning
your
to
source?
question,
Where is your source showing us the Hebrews coming
why are
off the
you
boat?
acting like a child,
No,
bruh?
this is all we want to talk about. Where is the source you said from 45 minutes ago that you're going to show us Hebrews coming off the boat?
I
You
gave.
threw that more shit out here to fix us up, throw us off
I
track, bro.
got you. So the only reason why we're here is because of what you just said and the
Bro,
source that. Let me finish talking, bro.
no, you capping. No,
Let me finish talking.
no, we here because you brought up Moors, and you supposed to be showing us this source. Where's
Are
the
you gonna
source?
keep cutting me off, bro?
Yes, I'm gonna keep cutting you off until you show us that source. I'm not letting you do the Hebrew shuffle. Where's the
If you would
source?
let me finish talking,
Where's the
you
source?
would hear the conclusion of why I'm saying what I'm saying, and then I'm going to try and redirect it back to the source that I initially brought. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to question what you brought out, bro. You like, anytime somebody goes against you, you act very effeminate. You need to chill, bro. It's okay for people to disagree with you. We're grown men. Relax. Now, just by what you said, you literally said that the term Moor has been used differently over many times and generations, and it doesn't have anything to do with the original term. The source that I brought out did not talk about slaves from 7-Eleven. It talked about the conquering of the Moors in 7-Eleven. Then 800 years later, people that were labeled as Moors going into slavery to the Americas. That's what I brought out. And if you look at the variety, did he leave? All right, no sweat. Garfield, did you want to show me what you was gonna show me?
Nah, let's what do you call it? That's on the other computer. I can't, for some reason it's spiraling, so I can't even do nothing on that computer. But
Okay, we could always rap about it.
All right. But let me ask you this:
you gotta be a better moderator, Garfield? That was crazy, man.
I don't ever moderate on my channel.
Nah, man, I'm not dealing with all. That's crazy, bro. People acting wild, man.
All right, let me ask you this. So you did say that you did bring up the Moors to say that there's something called Moorish Jews. So you're gonna have to give a source for the Jews being Moors. You're gonna have to bring.
I never said anything about a term being Moorish Jews. I said Jews were also called Moors.
All right.
I can definitely show that in the future.
Okay. All right. I think that's all Robon wanted. And then what other situation are you bringing up to say, hey, people were Jews that came on the slave ships?
The expulsion of the Jews from Spain.
The expulsion of the Jews from Spain. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the expulsion of the Jews from Spain, was there Jews that were put on slave ships to come over, or you're talking about they went into Africa?
Going into places of Africa like Saint Tome, and then slave ships going from Saint Tome to the Caribbean islands.
Okay, well,
that's just one.
That's easily refuted because the kids that went to Sao Tome, they were basically killed off, and the people that were the Angolans that were taken to Sao Tome mixed with the people there, so most of them come over with African E1B1A anyway. So how would you prove that those are Jews? Because
we'll see.
They weren't on the ships. Those people weren't on the ships.
Okay, we'll see when we talk about it.
Okay. All right. Is that it, bro? You got to go?
I mean, I already, extended time. We could still rap.
All right, cool.
We can still rap on some things.
You want to break down some situations with the Jews coming over on slave ships? Go ahead, bro. I listen. I got you.
I mean, I really can't do it because I can't go off of my phone, bro.
Oh, okay.
Like if I go off the StreamYard on my phone, you can't. Let me see if I could do it. Should I try again, or it just doesn't work?
Nah, leave it alone. Leave it alone.
All right.
Let me see.
I mean, I'm always here for more questions, and I'll probably stay on for another 10, 15. If nobody want to ask questions or deal with anything. You got to moderate though, bro. You can't just have men screaming like crazy, cutting people off, man. We grown men at the end of the day, Garfield.
Yeah. All right.
Where's Christian Corey when you need him, brother?
He's stupid. All right. It's 1:30. We've been on for over 3 hours. Listen, man, let me go watch my game before the debate, and I'll see you at 5:30, brother.
What's your team?
The Jets.
Come on, man.
I'm not a wishy-washy guy. I'm the Bills.
Brother. Are you shitting me?
The Bills lost earlier, and the Jets is my team. I'm not a wishy-washy guy. I'm a New York guy.
I'm a New York guy too, but I'm a Giants fan.
Giants getting their ass whooped right now.
All right, now I gotta go. Now you just all right, bro. Enjoy your game, man. I'll see you in a couple hours.
All right, cool. All right, peace out.
All right, sure.
All right. Hey, Amil Carr, if you want to come on for a second, jump on. Jump on, family. Jump on. All right, I'm out of here, man. Peace and love, and I'll see y'all later. Let me go lie down and wait for my Jets game 4:25. Watch that, then jump on and do this debate. All right, peace and love, family. We out. 1.